I'll be on, man.
God
Give me a
bless
second.
our one
I'll be
viewer.
on.
I'll send you the link. So we'll be on. So anyways, yeah.
Eat your breakfast, dude.
So we were very late.
Spicy?
For
it's
today's
Yeah, spicy.
dev
spicy.
meeting. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I got some jalapenos.
Today's dev meeting is
Medium.
brought to you by this burrito.
Oh, God bless burritos.
You want me to join you there on screen?
No, that's okay.
Enjoy him on burrito, man.
We've got the usual.
Nobody
Zhenya.
needs to see my ugly
We've
face.
got we've got Igor with us here today.
God knows why.
Hopefully the mic doesn't
Why not?
drop off.
That's the better question to ask is why
Right,
not?
so we've just been kind of shooting the shit, chilling out, and topics always interesting as usual.
Yeah.
They've been very heated, a little bit passionate, we'll say. And
Yeah, nobody's fighting.
lots of
No blood yet.
good points. Nobody's pulled a knife out on anybody.
Well, let's just call it different arcs, different walks of life, different places we've been, things we've seen.
Right.
Some of us are older than others.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By little.
So here we are, Portal Mountain Dev meeting number 57, I think,
Yeah,
something
we-
like that.
we
Oh,
pre-
yeah.
I don't know if we'll call this the heart of the guild or if we'll. Just
No,
continue on
I
with-
think we have enough.
I think we've wrapped that pretty good.
Yeah, like if we take the exercise that
I
I
was thinking
presented,
we could continue the
forward.
workshop.
we'll do that next time. We'll do the workshop next time. But
Right.
for this, no, obviously.
For this, forget about it.
Yeah, we're not
For
gonna
this one.
we're not gonna bore our
Right.
guests.
Indeed.
Speaking of, Mr. Guest, my own father is here.
Oh, you like for
Say
real
hi.
shit, eh?
Oh, it's people are going to listen to it sometimes, even if it's me.
Sure.
And anyway, like
I'm your biggest subscriber.
we're
Our
talking about.
biggest fan is here, anyways, who checked in from Israel,
Visited you a few times.
Great Holy
yeah.
Land.
Mhm.
Last, what was that, like a couple?
Yeah, it was last time because we had a 4-week break.
And we break, yep. That was last time, yep.
I know.
Thanks
it's
for
like
that.
a Japanese
We'll
poet.
check in.
Things from nothing to
We
do.
felt very honored and, taken care of by our fans.
Hey, glad to be here.
So today is the heated subject of politics. I'm of course raving about how they don't work, and everybody else is choosing a side of which side works so far.
No, it's kind of my point too, is that we should back up from the left and right.
How far?
Understanding that left
So
and
instead
right
of left and right, top
are
and
in
bottom.
their own different worlds. Like they're segmented into different realities, literally. They can't understand from one another. And one would say, that makes no sense. But to the other side, they would say, that makes all the sense. Right? There's like this, these opposites and this
Yeah, yeah.
kind of crazy
So,
duality.
yeah.
You see both sides saying the exact same literal
That's the third
word
side.
for word
They're both saying the
things
same things.
about each other. But just
Talking about each other?
Yeah.
different.
Both sides?
Like,
If
right,
you ever
right.
listen to them side by side, you actually can hear it very, very clearly.
The left, the right.
They're, this guy's the bad guy. This guy's the bad guy.
No,
This
you're the
guy-
Nazi. No, you're the actual Nazi. No, really, if you look at it, you're the Nazi.
Yeah, it basically goes back and forth like that. And so politics looks like a couple of children in the sandbox fighting over a toy.
That's right. And funny guys, too. Like a comedian guy.
And we call that...
We're
machi-
back to it again,
and
eh?
we call that civilization.
Like how a comedian become president of the country. On the other hand, how the drama teacher become a prime minister of the other country.
Right?
And other things.
And on the other hand,
How the chocolate king of other country was a prime minister of that country or president for many, many years.
So the question is...
How
It-
come? That's the question.
No, my
How
question. My
come?
question to you would be, instead of just asking that, is this really a question about their ability to do the job, or is it a question of whether professional politics is actually more of a scam to keep people out? That people of those kinds of jobs can do the same job.
Well,
just the
professional
same.
politics, interesting breed. Who are professional politics?
Well,
Who
exactly.
are
Right.
they?
Exactly.
Who are these people?
I'm saying,
Isn't that-
I'm questioning the whole idea of
Right.
what is a professional politic. If, say, a comedian or did you say drama teacher?
Drama teacher?
If so many different other professions can actually take on this job, what does that mean about this job? Like, does it mean to be a professional politic is bullshit, or is there something there?
I know. On the other hand, can businessmen be a president?
So I can't answer your question directly. How come? But I could suggest maybe what we think the people that should be in politics is not quite the correct story.
Because they don't have connections? Because they don't have
Well,
people
that's true
who
for
supports
everything.
them big time?
That's true for everyone.
It's back to everything about money again.
The whole thing
Terrible.
being
Well,
rigged.
is it ever? When is it not? It would be my next question. When is it not money?
It's always a money.
Because you don't see people without money go anywhere
Well,
until they get money.
I had that idea for many years. It's called people don't buy anything in one day. In one day you don't buy anything. It will stress the freaking somebody. Maybe. Maybe
Right.
not.
Oh, like a boycott.
Looking,
Yeah, man. The boycotting, not buying.
or
Fuck all.
But for-
in one day, in 24 hours. No gasoline, no sandwich.
Which is
no
the-
fucking,
That's
no hamburger.
symbolic. More
Okay,
And
but
turn the lights off as well in your place.
you've worked with
Like
marketing.
Earth Hour. Oh, we're gonna save the
You,
planet.
you work with marketing people, right?
No, I don't work with marketing people.
Nobody advertises for you.
No, we do what we do by advertising ourselves.
So you advertise for you.
Let's
My-
try to keep it generic as well,
So my-
and not put any personal details.
My point
on.
was is that it's advertising and marketing and all of that stuff goes completely opposite to what you're just saying, because the point of marketing is to induce a sense of urgency. You need it now. Now. You have to have it.
Well, see, that's the problem with
That's how you make
capitalism.
money.
I plan
Of course.
unplanned economy. Economy must be planned. Every country, every subject must plan the life. It's just
Well,
in your head.
you have good
you know,
examples of
when
that.
you're spending money paying your mortgage weekly, and you have to be with this schedule, and it leaves you $50 to live your life.
Well, something's wrong there.
I know. You
'Cause
always
you're not-
poor. You always fucking.
You're supposed to pay.
Well, because you invested it there and invested it there because it's so.
You're supposed
Don't you
to spend
feel
a
it's like
third of
being
your income.
bullshitted? All your money being used when you have to fucking suffer every day because you don't have anything, but you invested in your future. What's your future? You may be dead tomorrow. Like, why would you use that type of?
Well,
Well,
for my future, I had to invest. I had to.
But
Education-wise, I had to get my
That's-
certificates.
That's
I had
not
to
for
get.
certain, though.
Nobody
these
said
funds
it.
can
Nobody
crash.
said it's for certain.
The
but
market can crash and boom,
and power can go
it's
off,
gone.
and that's money. No, it's
I
gone.
came out into the workforce in 2008. What happened in 2008? The market crashed.
And you got
I'm
upset,
literally
and
a
everyone
fucking,
got upset. Everyone needed to
I had to fucking live on $16 an hour, which is basically Wendy's wage for 7 years of my fucking life because of it.
because you
A
liked
prof-
it.
a pro-
Because you liked it that way.
No, because
you can get in the morning and go to
No,
work
no, no,
and
no.
do
I didn't know
great
any better.
freaking working day.
Didn't know any better.
And then
Two.
Brian puke and so
Two.
on, and
Two.
it goes on. You never know.
Two, Barry.
That's an accomplishment.
We're talking about Barry, a place where this shit does not exist.
Well, I'm sorry we brought you here. Life
So-
was so comfortable for the family.
There are certain things that you can do to make your life better, but they do take time to invest in, no matter how you slice it. And I'm in that position, and it hurt me.
Right, just starting out.
Starting out at a negative, basically. Below zero. I didn't start at zero, I started below zero. With debt for college, with fucking shit jobs everywhere. And literally no desire to do fuck all else at all. Because it's all gonna be like a worst path. What if I didn't do this path? It would have been fucking less money today. So I had to invest. Got through bad credit, now good credit. Yay.
Oh yeah.
Apparently they forget about you.
I remember life
Yay.
without credits.
You had it easier, man.
Really?
Yeah.
You still have to get up in the morning and go to work.
No,
What's
that's the same.
easier?
That
than
stuff
that?
is the same. But
Well.
shit costs more today.
Mm,
A lot more.
not my fault.
No, nobody says it's your fault.
Mm.
I didn't blame
No.
you for it. I'm just saying that I can't do the same
There
things.
is a whole different generational work ethic and all that. Like that's completely different.
Yeah, nobody wants to spend 80 hours in a week working
Like
Working.
back when
and
you
seeing
could,
very little out of
back
it.
when you could work the basic factory job and support an entire family.
Yeah,
All the
that
kids
too.
and all the house. Yeah, you were motivated to work, even if it meant being super
To make
responsible,
sacrifices.
being on time, sacrifices.
Yeah, you got
knew what
paid
you
for
were
it.
getting. You were getting a hell of a deal for that.
Yeah.
Now
When-
it's
when
like
one person
well,
could support
you're
four
not going to
people.
have savings. You're going to hold on for the, white knuckling life, just to scrape by. And because of the way the economy's going, but that's not anybody's fault. But still, that creates a
Different life.
different understanding between generations. Like
Yeah.
the sayings and attitudes that got you by at one time just don't on another time. Maybe because it's just there's not the same rewards there even.
Mhm.
Like what am I, on
Hard-
average, on general, like in large, by and large, people are getting fucked up way more than people who have savings, i.e.,
Oh,
people
like-
who have been alive longer to even be in that time of where you would have savings. There's different mindsets.
And let's put it this way. Never in my entire life have I been rewarded for hard work. I've never been given a reward for working harder.
What do you mean
Ever.
reward?
If I
Monetary?
work hard or if I work slow, if I
The
work
same
this
thing
way,
happens.
the exact same thing happens. That doesn't matter. I've never had a positive response from the capitalistic machine for putting in more effort of any kind. Never happened in my life, and I'm 40 now. Fuck.
This is the world I'm in. If you do it do it, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Or, in my case right now, easy if I do, easy if I don't. Now, granted, I feel a little bit more inclined to work for somebody who is appreciating me than not. So it's easier to actually get shit done. But it doesn't mean I have work harder. Like, that's not what gives me better results. Working harder never gave me better results.
Better reward.
Well, that would be the result for me, right? Like, what the fuck am I working for? To make less money?
Right.
Back to money, eh?
Well, how am I gonna feed people?
That we hated
I
few
need to go
minutes
to the
ago.
grocery store too.
That's
That we
reward.
thought it the subject of lie. Now it's back to it. See?
Mhm.
It's,
Well, it's
That's
so,
how the
it's,
market-
but it's like so.
it's the world is, man. No,
It's
but
intertwined. Yeah, you can't separate.
open your eyes and it's the truth. That's
No,
how it
Mark,
is.
If an apple is 5
That's
cents,
how it is.
If an apple is 5 cents, then even if you're talking about eating an apple, you're still talking about 5 cents, right?
Mhm.
So it's always going to be money that way.
Unbelievable.
Times changing,
Always. Always.
world spinning.
Yes. Yeah, I still have to go shopping.
Oh yeah, what are you after?
Eggs and milk. Really.
That's not bad.
And fruits, whatever I need. Whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
I left my house early. Mm-hmm.
Getting some shit done.
Well, it's Sunday, you know. Just take care of yourself. Just planning to shave a little,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, me too. I did.
Or not. Well, day's not over yet.
Nope.
Yolan burritos. How can you eat that shit?
It's the best. It has every single vitamin and mineral that you'd ever need.
And the mineral, eh?
Mhm.
Oh God.
Complete protein,
God,
beans and rice.
God bless those who eat burritos.
So good.
I just don't like that bread, man. I prefer that being on the plate.
Mm.
You know, slop the rice, put the meat on it and veggies and stuff like that, and go with a fork and knife.
It's pretty thin. There's not much to it. It's just holding.
I just don't like that bread taste
Just
like at
holding it
all. It's
together.
like freaking tasteless.
Mm.
Like soft matzo bread.
It's all about what's inside.
But still, the cover is
It's all
important,
about
you know.
what's inside.
You know, burrito means little donkey.
Burrito.
Oh,
Oh no!
there you go.
I'm trying to show off.
Perfect.
Hey, watch
You
for your
showed up
eyes.
just in
It's a
time.
perfect moment to show up, and all I saw as the first scene is just.
What did you eat it, man? It's your laptop,
Let's
man.
see,
There-
what are they doing? Yeah, but the keyboard is supposed to be
The keyboard is the
But
worst.
nobody uses it but you.
Keyboard is
dirtiest-
worse than your toilet.
Oh
dirtier than a
man.
toilet. Oh, I don't mind if I do. Thank you.
See, I'm helpful.
Clean your keyboard, man. Clean your keyboard.
It's a lost battle.
Sweet burrito.
I need to go shopping.
For what?
Eggs and milk. And fruits
I
that
got
I
those
want.
yesterday.
Oh, and the meat, some meat for dinner.
I was impressed. I went to church today.
Oh,
Not bragging, just,
hallelujah.
just saying. But they set up for when everybody's going out. They got a fucking shelf, and they just like shove meat, like frozen meats and like different foods, and it's like just says free ticket, pretty much.
Really?
And I was like, fuck yeah, like
I'll take two.
finally, because like churches will usually do outreach. Oh, we got to help the homeless. Meanwhile, your fucking congregation is starving. Like, does that make any sense?
So now it's backwards.
So just now it's pick up, grab. If you
Feed
want,
your own,
grab
yes.
it.
Damn, church makes
Have
money
some.
now, right on.
Well, whatever they're doing,
And
Yeah.
notice, no democracy is involved.
it's simply
Just
like
take your shit and go.
anybody
Depends
who
on the
wants
church.
Well, I know, but in this case,
Mhm.
that's like the right way to do it.
Mhm. So I was happy about that because, like, they partner with like Zara's and shit. When their meat's out, they just freeze it when it's out of date.
Yeah, there's like a lot of waste in the
So
whole,
like, yeah, like
in the whole produce
connecting
section.
with supermarkets and shit. Like, it fills up our freezers right away, and it's like they got more that's going probably to other churches and stuff, right? But
Yeah, that's
you
wholesome.
don't. It shouldn't just be outreach. It should be inreach too, right?
Well, yeah. It's like helping everybody else and starving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Jesus ate a little.
How do you know?
Well, he survived.
He lived. He lived for more than 1 week, reportedly. Reportedly, according to reports.
On 3 fish?
Oh, did you hear about the fucking pastors that died trying to do his 40 day what do you call it, fast? See, like in the book, Jesus goes to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights
40 is a mythological number.
without
So
eating.
first off,
And so these pastors keep fucking trying to do that and dying.
you have to actually train for years and years to be able to do anything like that. You can't just up and,
that's
I'm gonna do
that's
this.
already
Or
you're
you
already
live all
starting.
your life like that?
Some
That's,
people are like that. India is famous for shit like
I
this.
know. And we still fucking whining about problems, eh?
breatharians.
And we whining about our problems around here.
People
We're the-
claim to survive off the nutrients that come through the air.
Different
The
level,
energy.
different problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's all really one singular problem expressing itself in different ways, in different places. That's why it comes back to money all the time.
Portal Mountain thesis.
Because
Right
that's the thing that's holding it all together. If it wasn't for currency, all of this would fall apart to begin with.
You mean a laundering mechanism? You need a layer to obfuscate what's
Accounting.
the actual meaning of
You
something.
need accountants.
The meaning gets run over. It's okay. That's 5 cents.
Accountants are the people who transform your apple into for the 5 cents.
How weird it is, eh? When we're making fucking country budgets for the years, we're using politicians. When we're trying to cut the losses, then we're looking for accountants.
And when we're looking to cut the rest of the losses, we're looking to the soldiers.
Any leftovers. So the state doesn't collapse.
And nobody gets to live. Everybody gets to be a part of something that doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing they get is something that doesn't mean shit to anybody. Oh look, more bricks, more concrete, more.
More is more people, man. What can you do?
More people is fine, but where's more dance? Where's more color? Where's more song? Where's more? I don't know. Everything we actually live for. Instead of all the shit we don't live for and just keep maintaining like fucking.
Yeah, but
Yep.
just as we said a minute before,
We can buy the image of it.
Yes, the image. We can buy pretty pictures of it only.
it's easy for us to say when we live a comfortable life, you know?
It's comfortable one way, but it's not comfortable in a different way. It's anxious. Always worried about the next fucking day.
Don't have to
We're
worry.
born to worry? No, we're
No.
not. You know what I
Well,
mean.
again, it's how you take it too.
Yes, and it
That's
took
the
me-
most important thing.
and it-
How you taking it. If you freaking worry about everything that freaking something goes not the way you was thinking it will do, and you freaking out about this, well, they just bring you to the fucking hospital sooner or later with a stroke or something.
Yes,
You got your family.
that's
Take
the
care of
that's
that.
the worst case scenario.
You got
So-
your family.
But to put into
Take
a
care
situ-
of this.
but to put into a
little
situation
union.
where some people can make it and some people fail to make it, and it's all just for again paper. What the fuck are we doing?
How did we live without fucking knowing somebody failed, somebody didn't? How the fuck we lived that before that?
There was nothing to fail at.
Oh, and now it is?
Yes.
Oh. I don't-
Back then, if you were sleepy, you took a nap. Today, you take a nap, you're fucking lazy. Meanwhile, you just need to sleep.
I'm going shopping.
Going shopping.
Finally, I'm going shopping.
Won't ask now.
There's no really
You
truly.
already topped up there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
There are no truly lazy people out there. That's myth.
Laziness, it's interesting thing. You know, there are some people who knows what they can be done in X amount of time, so they can be lazy for that amount of time because they know how shit works. That's
No, that's not laziness.
it is. It is. It is.
That's calculation. Laziness is.
But
what
lazy
I'm talking
people
about-
made the fucking calculations.
Laziness is probably never getting it done. You've got to think about it.
Laziness
That's
is
a
like a
negative.
deer stuck in front of your headlights in the middle of the night, and like you know how the deer just freezes and doesn't move.
Listen, well, you live in China. You don't think those things. Okay? And most of the people live over there. So let's think that way. Forget about deer. Don't
So
put the
in Chi-
fucking deer.
in
Especially
China-
you never been in that situation.
In China, you currently
Bad
have
example.
a situation in which all the 20-year-olds are collectively deciding to not work, not own property, not do anything, and sleep on the street
And
on
there are-
purpose.
That's
Like
correct.
you actually have people doing this.
Same thing around here. I can find cap.
No, no,
yeah.
no. I'm talking about people who could have done something. Not like homeless, not yet anyway. everybody collectively, like, just no, this you're
Not
not
everybody,
working,
but there's a
you're not
phenomenon.
working for me, I'm done.
I think
None of this is for any of us.
they call it lying flat.
Yeah, it's an actual huge phenomenon right now in China. So even that is going this way.
Just there's no reward in what they're pursuing. That matches the effort anymore. The shit's going. It's if you look at the banking system.
Yeah, the banking failures.
The banking system ensures through currency that eventually it's going to inflate away because you don't pay off your debts. It's not like gold. You can choose to not to basically print more, right? With gold, if you have debts in gold, and you want to honor them, it's by paying gold. With fiat currency, you can lend, just buy and buy, lend and lend.
You can
And
put
then
it on paper.
you can lend so much to the point where it doesn't even matter that loan is now in such a small, you're just paying pennies basically. Because the money gets inflated away, you're still talking in the same terms.
Yeah, it's putting it from gold to paper, from an actual object to pretending we have an object.
So in other words, a currency, the life of a currency, of a fiat currency, is a cycle. It has a start where you have to bootstrap it into trust, where the public is trusting it, where people are trusting it. Then it has a golden age, and then it always has an abuse age, where it's just money is lent everywhere. You have this inflation, money spending, whether it's government, and government links in with bank to legitimize this extreme expenditure through wars and all that kind of shit. But in the end, you have
The crash.
hyperinflationary crash where the money becomes useless, all savings become useless. And where did it go? It got legitimized through the government, the military, this kind of stuff, where washes and washes of money just kept flowing, being created out of thin air, they say, right?
Yeah,
and
they
the value at some point just gets sapped. Like the value of the currency gets robbed by the same central bank process. It's a process. Once it gets robbed and depleted, you're moving to new assets, owning new currencies, owning new this and that. The new ones that just got trust. Meanwhile, it's the same fucking thing where arbitrarily you create them out of thin air, right? And loan them only to your friends. That's a central, it is central planning. What we have now, Igor, is central planning.
It's just a different...
Because the bank says who gets a fucking loan.
It's just a different story behind who is planning and what. So the story you're sold is that you're doing all the planning, meanwhile, not really. Whereas on the other side, it's like, we're doing all the planning and fuck you.
But look who approves loans. Who approves a loan to go into...
But it's the same system.
Which industries get approved for loans?
And that's why they look the same, even though they talk different. The West and the East, China looks the same as all of them too. India looks the same. Israel looks the same.
Central bank system.
They're all in the same fucking. They're all the same players.
Pardon me.
Just different flavor. Just different flavor. Some taste more like shit. Some taste more like diarrhea.
If you know the difference, God bless.
What's your vote, sir? What are you voting for?
So like, even on the stock market side of this, let's say you want to support a mining industry that's completely depleted. They're at the bottom. You tell your friends, we're going to start loaning to do new ventures for this industry. Now your friends invest and buy up these companies. These companies owned by your friends now, your friends have bought out, say, a certain mining industry. Now you give the loans to allow them to expand into this new opportunity, right? You allow that, or through government you allow what was previously blocked. Meanwhile, your friends have bought up the companies.
Yeah, so
right?
so your rich friend.
You're giving your rich friends
making
loans
more money
to make
The
more
poor
fucking
people
money.
fuck you again.
Like nobody's on the inside. It's all an inside job, man.
It's been like that for hundreds
I
of
know,
years.
it doesn't have to be that way.
And you know who gives the loans, and you know who gives it to.
Uh-huh.
And we know who gives it for.
Meanwhile, so much shit could be done if money wasn't involved at all.
How else? With the carrots?
Carrots?
You don't need carrots.
How would you
Well, I
trade
mean,
it?
somebody might need
How would you trade
don't
it?
need to-
How else would you trade
You
it?
don't need to
You
trade.
just give it
You
away.
give.
Just free.
All right.
Just like when I'm
You
at, just
do.
like when I'm at your house
talking,
and I'm
bro.
hungry, you don't have a problem with me making a sandwich.
Sandwich?
Same idea.
Sandwiches.
Sandwich.
Who could
We're
argue
all
with
big
that?
one happy family.
sandwich
If we
or
are one big
sandwich?
happy family.
Is it sandwich or sandwich?
Sandwich. Which?
He's an asshole.
Sandwich.
Sandwich.
Sand
Sand.
with a D.
Like
When you say
like
with a
like,
G,
like sand on the
sang,
beach.
Just for fun.
So,
Sand on the beach, man.
For fun, I do.
Should I make my way over there then?
Sure. Well, or we could probably switch
Change a bit
this
of
around,
scene.
but have a
Change the
seat.
scenery.
Have a seat
Goodbye,
on this.
world.
Goodbye, goodbye. Thank you for joining us.
Laters.
Hope it was fun.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
Saving the world, right?
Woo.
A little bit.
Au revoir.
a little bit at a time.
Au revoir. It's become one little bit better.
Just like tilt it more.
One bit better.
There you go, laddie.
Well, I think we will end up. I think.
It's fine.
doing
Like we
that.
can do that on the break or something. We'll keep going right now. All right, so that was fun.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. You got another hour and a half.
and before that was started, like our thinking was really
Yes, let's debrief.
to do the that we finished the arc, and I think that's also good news because we can kind of start talking about strategy as to how to make it more practical. Right, because that was like one of the biggest
Yeah.
blockers. You were
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
see
yeah,
the end
yeah,
goal
yeah.
and out of the
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm trying to do like, okay, well, let's do the end goal as an exercise,
Mm-hmm. So
Right.
and we did that.
and we can continue like reiterate on that because it's not the kind of idea that is easily understood like through one iteration.
Right.
Interestingly enough, it's an iterative process, right? So it's like there is value in
We're
trying
gonna be
to do
quiet
this.
here too because of the mic. Why don't we just flip it around?
All right, fine.
Flip it.
But you're not doing the clean job, right? Fuck that shit.
No. No time. There is no time. Probably need a piece of tape for this, but let's see how that does this.
Do you kind of get what I was trying to lay out with how, if you take democracy to its like extreme conclusion, you get this like pseudo anarchy shit going on where everybody's just forever arguing over the blades of
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah.
And it's like that standing there drooling sort of scenario. Whereas on the other one, you're like you're like this hothead that doesn't think anything through, and just like steamrolls through everything, causing the same stagnation and complete destruction, and then nothing is left in between. It's really the picture that emerges out of that, and
Right.
it's quite.
Pardon. Rearranging the mic here.
Yeah. And it's quite on par with what we're seeing in the world stage today, right? Like you have scorched earth, or zero like cohesion.
Right.
So like, yeah, you can have like a kind of a, how do you call it? A Huxleyan lack of cohesion, in which everybody seems to be all happy, but basically everybody's just high. So like this hyper celebratory mode of like, let's do the festival, and then there's like no actual meaning behind any of the festivals.
Right.
You can, so this isn't like not gay bashing or anything like that, but like you can see this kind of stuff happening with, say, pride parades, or well, really any kind of demonstrations of any kind that are based in, well, lack of a better descriptor, moral outrage.
Right.
So like you have like this huge celebration.
Trying to symbolically
Yeah.
support or oppose certain.
Yeah, so you
things.
have this huge celebration of which I absolutely have no qualms with itself, right? Like, fine, that's the thing. But what I'm noticing also is that once the parade is over and done with, it's basically business as usual.
Go home.
Right. It's kind of like token celebration. It isn't rooted in anything that feels meaningful. Not from the individual perspective, but from the social one. To the individuals participating in it, obviously, it has significant meaning within their own personal lives, is to be able to be themselves within a group of people who are being themselves. All well and good. But the other aspect of it is like, okay, now that we've celebrated all of that, why is it just another date on the calendar?
Mm-hmm. Right, to have
Now
a
what?
certain month or a certain day.
Right. It feels like a token. It doesn't feel
Exactly,
like
yeah.
a real thing. Like same
For
with
things
Black
like,
History Month.
if you look
Okay,
at
get
the
a month.
calendar
Now what?
and all the different celebrations, they come from a history and a reason for celebrating that. And it's
Yeah.
supposed to memorialize or allegorize
Like
certain
November 11th.
behaviors in our lives. So all these celebrations throughout the year are supposed to remind us of something that we're doing every day. Pretty much.
But it's not.
right? But that's not what actually happens.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting that right on the thing. Is that there's this, a big distinction between this tokenized.
Hitting the nail on the head. You know, the thing. Sorry.
The tokenized celebratory
Tokenization.
of something that is actually supposed to be much more meaningful and,
Mhm.
and deeper.
So this actually blocks it off from being further investigated.
Yeah,
Interesting.
from the systemic point of view, okay, we've done our Black History Month, check box off of the list, right?
Mhm.
Moving on, status quo maintained.
Okay, we'll just forget about this for the rest of the year.
Much like the voting process, much like any of the other, or Christmas, where you're supposed to love everybody.
Right, and voting. Glad you brought that back in.
Well, any
It's a symbolic-
any ceremony
Symbolic
really.
act. Yep.
They're all religious in nature, so it's not really. It doesn't make any sense to like really
Separate. them.
separate. Yeah, like look at them in different lights.
Agreed. do 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 do.
I think I need to answer a few messages on my phone.
Oh.
I do not. Nice.
Nope, I was about to post the Portal Mountain dev meeting link. I mean, it's been quite a different.
Style of meeting.
Yep. In style. That's gonna be Portal Mountain. So I did just post, and we're gonna be going for another hour and a half,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. So, if I may, kind of like push it into a certain direction. I'd like to.
yeah, sure, I like where we were just going, with like talking about the book and more practicality.
Yeah. So last time we did a kind of like run through the exercise of agile economics and how that looks like in a concrete sense. We've been really trying hard to bridge together your idea of you have an idea, here's a bunch of sticky notes, right? Like and trying to like give that some sort of structure that doesn't make it look like just put your ideas on a sticky note and then be done with it, right? Because
Something that's functional, something that's alive. Whatever
Yeah,
you're doing with these
'cause-
notes, it's part of life.
Because our difficulty was to present that idea as functional without really going into enough details as to what makes it actually functional. And so this is so we can actually articulate something better in this meeting that we didn't articulate you later because of the chats that have happened since then.
Right.
And I think one of the things that is going to make it easier is to like,
You mean Portal Mountain chats, like
Yes.
in the lobby?
yeah.
Yeah, it was quite exciting month.
So one of the things I said was you have a blackboard or a whiteboard on which you kind of like throw shit at. That's your sticky notes of ideas. That gives it like the unstructured.
Right.
Throw it
With
out.
sticky notes,
throw
we
it
would call it a
into the ether.
whiteboard.
Yeah, we're just
due to
using a
the
metaphor.
type of technology.
It's a metaphor. Any technology would.
We're
would
talking
fit
about
that.
a shared medium, something everybody can see. That's
Right.
basically it. Taking up a
Something
wall,
you write
whatever.
it down on the board. So, with that, we also have another side. It's like a whiteboard, but it's got 3 columns on it: to do, in progress, and then done. Right, and so the to do is dictated by what's stuck onto the whiteboard. So something got demanded, right, and because of the demand, there's something to do. So it creates like it's a codependent sort of sticky note. So as soon as you put that one down and it sticks onto the whiteboard, metaphorically speaking, that means automatically another counterpart to it has to appear in the to-do list. What is it that's going to be done to satisfy the whatever was the demanded?
So we're having a generic space we're calling it a whiteboard, in which we're collecting demands. So we're trying to formulate demands, take them
Right.
into something that's in a shared medium that can be viewed and interpreted by others.
And these demands dictate what appears in the to-do column. Because this is the demand, and the demand can only be satisfied in such and such a way, this, and this, and this, and this needs to
Right.
happen. So this, and
And-
this, and this, and this, and this comes on the to-do list.
Right. There's almost going to be formulas probably for this is demanded, therefore it's kind of like these are the protocols.
So yeah, this is where your gardening situation comes into play. So if you want to plant a flower, you need to dig a hole, you need to get the seed, you need to cover the seed into
Right.
the hole in the right depth, you need to put the water in. So demand, make flower grow, supply, to do this, do this, do this, do this. Now, you notice that there's a sequential aspect to this situation. You can't plant the seed before you dig the hole. So, what gets pulled into the in progress, right, is dictated by this dependency structure. Now, say you've done something, but you've changed the environment by doing so. Now you need space to get rid of the garbage in which you've worked, for example.
So
another
there's-
list item on the to-do list,
there's
which could take
probably-
a priority before even the next task you're doing.
So we're talking, I think, about what do they call those trees? Semantic trees, where let's say you demand something, but that demand itself, through its execution, has its own demands, which unfold, right? So those kind of get slapped back onto the whiteboard, and this tree keeps trickling along,
Right.
kind of thing.
And that causes it to add items to the to-do list, but the added items also cause the to-do list to rearrange in order. Because you can't just slap things to the bottom of the list if they have to happen first before something
Right.
that's already on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
list is.
So you're talking about the meta schedule now.
Right, how doing
how to
something
process it.
shifts the priority order of what you're going to do.
Right.
And sometimes, because you've done something, other items disappear out of the to-do list because they're no longer relevant.
Right.
Even though they were there in the to-do list before, they're not going to get done at all.
So we're kind of starting off here with a very simple system, simple media. A whiteboard, sticky notes, a pencil, marker, whatever.
Just for visualization, yeah.
So that's kind of like, we're not necessarily talking about programming and all this kind of complexities. We're trying to filter this through a simple thing that anybody could use.
This could be worked for moving, like from one place to another. Pick up furniture, put it on the
Right.
transportation truck, have the transportation truck move to the new address, remove all the furniture, place it in the correct positions in the new place. These are still programs. They're
Now,
just not computerized.
Interestingly, before these programs get developed, it's kind of like sensing in the dark. You don't really know what's coming up. So for new processes that are new to the organization, you may have to just start you start small, like you were saying earlier. You start with the short-term goals, which things that seem like achievable, which push you towards this kind of goal of murkiness, where you don't know like what it takes to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this process, this is a bootstrapping process of knowledge. In which case, next time you go through this process, for example, all these new demands are going to keep coming up through the tree because you've went through the tree once, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of knowledge isn't available anywhere to just go and find out, except deep buried into textbooks and like all this kind of stuff.
What's
right?
interesting about being in like a situation of what this is called a perpetual bootstrap is that you're always kind of feeling out into the murkiness in one sense, but also because you're already been bootstrapped, you're always also contextualized. So it's never like a murkiness without a specific route to take, if you will.
Mhm.
Right? Like it's that feedback observation loop that keeps
right.
adding to the picture after the fact.
Right.
And even each picture in the context that we're talking about, like say a newborn baby who is supposedly blank still has enough neurology to digest, to like move its arms around, to like feel out the space that it's going to actually utilize after the fact, right? So even like in that case, you have a platform off of which you're springing off of, so you're not at ground zero, and also constantly bootstrapping
Right.
into new grounds, always being at ground zero.
Of course.
So it's kind of like
And everybody has their own experience of this.
right.
Their own
It unfolds
accumulated knowledge.
It unfolds in in a unique way for each person, yes, or each group, or each thought. Even like take it to whatever scale you need, you get the same picture.
Right. See, you're saying that
cells don't start
you're
out of
pointing
a
to
vacuum.
the fact that what we could call fundamentals are always there in our context. The things that we've learned up since childhood.
Right.
It's always there, which is helping us to act as humans in the world. Right.
Yeah. So like you're bootstrapping on a certain layer, but that layer is also on top of a whole bunch of other layers, and they've already gone through the bootstrap, and so your bootstrap is not necessarily blank. Like you're not
Right.
like
Yeah.
like I'm just saying, cells don't appear out of a vacuum, right?
It's not like you don't know where to go to find certain facilities or services. That's what you're building off of.
That's actually the plateau.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about. Already existing context that we live in, all the tools and knowledge that we have can be applied to new problems.
Yeah.
And so,
Therefore not negated.
when
either.
we're going to what we call a new problem, that's something we haven't experienced, guaranteed probably there is some
experience out there,
professional who has gone to these depths in this and even wrote a book. And it's like, well, maybe you could use that mapping material if it was written well, the book of their experience. You could read that and learn from all their mistakes before it happens to you. Right? So this reading and pulling up of map, that whether that's available or not, this process is still happening, right? If that's available and it's actually good, great.
Feeding back. It's just
great.
It's just feeding back. Something happened, it feeds back into what's going to happen. Something happened, it's going to feed back into whatever happens. Something happened, it's going to feed back into whatever is going to happen.
Right. And so a bigger context here, we're talking about organization and organization of life itself, and we're using a holonic model to describe this phenomenon of layering of complexities into plateaus. And yeah, so that just as to give what we're doing here is we want to be able to apply this type of technology into any organization of any holon within the organization.
And by that, even organizing one's own thoughts. So organization does not mean collective out there with the other individuals, company making kind of stuff, but organizing one's own thoughts, organizing one's own relationships with the people.
Is it
that
going to be a
they're-
dustman?
Wow. Second guests of the day.
What, Igor came in?
Igor was here from the beginning,
Oh, fuck.
and he left like maybe 15, 20 minutes ago.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So you want to take over the show for us while we go to the washroom?
What's up, man? No, I'm good. Just one of those days.
Where you don't want to wake up.
Everything is fucked.
Everybody sucks.
You don't really know why.
But you want to justify.
Rip it over the
He left his own contract.
Just one of those days.
Nice. Sweet. Yeah, so we've been shooting the shit for pretty much half the day here.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Nice. Good day.
Yep. But we did kind of settle into just kind of starting to recap some of the stuff we're doing with Portal Mountain. Facilitation, talking about organizing people,
Oh man.
the holonic model.
Nice.
Yep. All kinds of good stuff.
Right on.
It's really a lot of corporations use this kind of technology right now. It's called Agile.
Oh
I don't know
yeah.
if you heard of it. It's
Regular
basically
period.
like if you're managing a team and that team has a product that they need to deliver, right? In the past, how they would do it is like, okay, let's all sit down for like a week and plan the shit out of this. And then 2 years later, we're going to have a product,
Oh then.
right? But meanwhile, 2 years later, you find out your initial planning had nothing to do with the customer that you delivered it. They said, fuck off. The customer didn't like it. It has nothing to do with anything,
Right.
right? Because your planning just wasn't associated with reality, right?
Okay.
So the idea of Agile is that you start off with the smallest possible chunk, the smallest possible deliverable, and you come back to the client 2 weeks later, not 2 years, but 2 weeks later, and say, is this kind of, you're looking at this kind of a thing? You know, like a crippled program, you just try to handicap them through like using it or something, right?
Right.
And if they're like, yeah, but it should do this and it should do that, and this is all the stuff you need to hear, right?
Right. For
So
like
that
research
like
and
bite-sized, yeah. Then you go back and you say, okay, the customer said this, you know, let's try and adapt to what they just said. And then so instead of 2 years later having something that's completely off the wall, you have something that's been worked on every 2 weeks. There's been like a checkpoint or something, right? That
Right.
feeds back with the client.
Yeah,
So
they're
you're gaining that. So now it's real.
So it
It's
still
actually
meets the demands.
Yeah.
it's the product that they want, right?
But the difference is that how involved this client is in this process versus the other one, where they're just like tell you their plans and they're like,
Yeah, okay.
go figure it out, right? You come back, they don't like it,
2 years later.
right? So in this way, it's like no. We were in this meeting. We were in this meeting. We were in this meeting. You said yes. You said yes. You said yes to this, to this, to this, to this. That's we told you then it's going to go this route because of these decisions. You
Yeah.
said yes. You see what I'm saying?
So the investor has accountability.
Exactly. Everybody's in it together instead of just like having somebody run the shit show and then cause it to be a shit show.
Yeah.
Right. So we're kind of thinking about expanding that
This is how programming works in our world.
type of thinking into economics.
Just general activity of human beings. Because like say you were planning on doing something, right? And then you created the first activity out of that. You've done it, and you're saying, wait a minute, this isn't panning out the way I thought it was going to be. What are you going to do? Keep going into the wrong direction, or are you going to go, maybe that plan wasn't the good one.
Right.
Maybe I should fix the plan 1st and then keep going,
I think the course correction is.
right? So
Yeah.
it's bringing
That's it.
that same
It's like
idea
cybernetics,
of
sailing the ship.
it's
you know?
basically bringing reality back into planning. Instead of making planning like these pies in the sky that keep fucking falling off for apparently no reason.
Right.
Right.
And
Waste
so
of
this is
fucking
a
money.
skill of connecting heaven and earth, or yin and yang, if you will. You know, like the
Keep it shit
heavenly,
grounded, yeah.
the heavenly and the material.
Keep it shit grounded in the realistic.
Right. And that's big problem with today's society, the way we run it, the way we think. Mind disconnected from body, right?
Sure.
And I mean, you do have to take into account that like some things take longer than others, and so some of those activities, you know, we could be talking about 2 weeks period, or we could be talking about a year's period, and then finding out something went wrong. It just depends on the scale of the thing, right, itself. But at any given time, the smaller stuff should generally point towards how the bigger stuff is going to go.
Right.
It's that old saying, if you do all the small stuff, the big stuff falls into place.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of that one? It's like a Chinese or Asian proverb. I don't know where from it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the general idea. It's like Taoism and all of Buddhism and all of those guys. It's like if you're really focused just on the smaller parts, look at your line of work. If you get all the small shit right, it's just all gonna snap together, right?
Sure.
So
Well, what's the other saying? Like the chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
that's a linear way of thinking, too one-dimensional. Because
Well,
if your chain is
but if there's a
it's
small
connected
detail
to chains
that's
to
broken,
chains to chains to chains to chains, and the three
that is
dimensions.
linear, literally linear. But if the smallest detail is fucked up,
So-
it can mess up the bigger picture. is
So
what I'm saying.
take that metaphor. In one line of the chain, yes, the chain falls apart, right? But if you take that chain, the exact same chain with one weak link, put on every link of that chain, put a vertical chain also linking with it,
Right.
and with all of those, put horizontal chains linking with those, and fill in all the gaps so you have a big ass cube of chain stuff.
Right.
Now that one weak link, what happens when you pull apart this huge mesh of chains?
Nothing.
It won't really matter.
Yeah. That's the difference between thinking about it in one dimension versus many
Okay,
multiplicity.
that was just a metaphor.
It was, so it's
And I
not
said
gonna.
that's not literally a metaphor.
No,
because
no, no,
it's
I
not a
know.
linear
I just wanted
thing.
to expand on the same metaphor and show it in a different light.
Right. Sure.
And so you got two kind of ways of looking at things. You can have it, yeah, in the linear sense, absolutely, it would break, no problem.
Right.
But
In a bigger picture.
maybe if you stick it into its real full picture, there's something supporting it.
Sure.
Just like Putin. You'd think it'd disappear, but
Like who?
Putin.
Oh boy.
You'd think it'd disappear, but
I don't know.
it was meant to be a
The
joke.
Legion of Doom.
But it's funny how that metaphor actually pads out for that situation too.
Oh, here we go. We're gonna have to wade through like so much.
What? You think people can stay up in power politically if people don't support them in some sense? Of course,
I
they
don't know if they
can't.
have a choice.
Well, it's called mutual what is it? Mutually assured destruction. If I go down, I'll take you down with me, so nobody's taking anybody down.
Yeah, that's the Cold War mentality. We're still in that
That's
Cold
the
War.
government of Russia right there. Probably everybody
No,
else
it's
too.
both. Why do you say
And-
that Russia? Both were
Because
agreed
Russia,
to that.
because Russia is where I have watched the documentary on, but it's applicable to every other place too. Russia just makes a more explicit case of it. So does North Korea.
Oh. Yeah.
In North Korea, do you think any of those officers are there because they want to be this evil, or because they're afraid they're going to get killed by all the other officers if they do anything different?
Probably the second.
It's just more explicit over there than it is over here. It is the same, just implicit.
Right.
You might just disappear
Yeah.
It happens here a lot.
in the boating
Well,
accident.
it's starting to. Yeah, I was gonna say it's starting to become more prevalent here.
Starting.
Definitely.
It's
Well,
always been like that.
okay. Starting to become more noticeable.
More reported in the media.
Mm.
That's the only difference, really. Shooting each other has been like the name of the game since time immemorial.
Yeah. Wiping out any dissidents.
Which makes this kind of conversation slightly unique in its discourse, because this is for the second time just today we have completely three different opinions in the same room, not wanting to choke each other out for having a different opinion of things.
Well, when Igor was here.
Just
And,
different,
and trust me, I can annoy him better than all of you can.
different perspectives.
Oh, you've got more years experience.
I do. I do.
You know where the buttons are.
I gotta keep telling you guys, your mascot is
Secret
dead.
buttons. What?
Your mascot.
Don't make it
he's
personal,
so
though.
fucking dead.
Which mascot?
Dog in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
It's dead.
What?
You have your dream team, a zombie apocalypse dream team,
Yeah.
in the bathroom with a German Shepherd as a mascot,
Fuck, the rest of them aren't dead yet.
Oh,
and it's probably like what, 15 years old of a picture.
well, at the very least, he's got hip problems.
At the very least, yes, arthritis.
Indeed, indeed.
But there-
Also, Bieber doesn't look the same. He's got the Bell's palsy look now.
I don't know what that is, but
I
it's
think
not-
like half of his face is like,
didn't he recover from that?
I don't know.
No, he recovered from the actual symptom.
Yeah, I think
It
people
came back.
most people who had it recovered from it.
They're,
It's not a fun experience. I've had what's called a mini stroke before,
Oh yeah.
and my entire half of the body was going through a very weird situation
When was that?
years ago, like before I got married.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, I think stress had a lot to do with it. I was working for Dave at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, lots of
Before the
fucked up shit.
vaccines.
It didn't happen since, so I didn't really need to do anything about it. I have mentioned it to doctors; they're not too concerned.
They never
Well, point being is that never happened since. So,
That's
but for like a good few seconds, like this sort of shut off, and there was like a weird sound going out, and I was like, okay, this is either it or it's going to go away, and it went away,
Nice.
and I was like, okay. Everything is feeling back. Everything's returning. They call those mini strokes. They're not like actual blockages. They're just momentary constrictions,
Oh yeah.
stress induced.
Hmm.
Watch out for those.
Body is a mystery in a lot of ways.
I was drinking a lot too at the time,
Well,
and I
that's
mean pass out drunk.
probably-
pass out drunk. Drinking.
probably doesn't help with any circulation
No,
or
but
other issues. you
I
might have
was
been having.
like, this was like the shit that was depressing me at the time. Like I was going downhill. I had alopecia. My hair was falling out.
probably
all that
related.
shit. So I was really deteriorating then. Then I switched jobs, and I recovered.
Yeah. Yeah. Stress is a son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
People handle it differently as well.
I wasn't aware I was deteriorating though. I was just
That's too late.
angry all the time.
It's understandable.
It's the only thing that registered as anger.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. Stress does that to people too.
Well, 20 years later, I'm still okay. Ish.
Right on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Brain didn't die, that's for sure. Or maybe it did, and that's why I'm so weird.
I don't know. It's pretty amazing what you can put your body through.
There are limits, though.
Yeah, for sure. There's a reason why
Obviously.
bullets kill.
Sure. Limits in certain regards, yeah, but
Speaking
I
of,
don't know.
I keep forgetting. I asked you this question. Do you ever put any time into gaming whatsoever?
oh yeah.
Red Dead Redemption?
No.
Never?
Not PC gaming.
No, I just
It's
play
not a
this one
PC game.
I mean, I used
It's
to play all
every
the,
platform.
Like the games back in the day, whatever, Zelda, Pokemon. all
It's
that
by
shit.
this. It's by the same guys that made GTA.
Okay.
So it's like a Western GTA almost,
Right. Yeah. No, I've
but with like.
I've seen it. I know what it is.
But it's almost. But it's beyond that. They made it almost into like a simulator.
right.
So you'd be like having the most casual conversation with somebody, and your horse will be just taking a shit right beside you.
It's like
Like
try to
or-
make it ultra realistic.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you gotta brush your horse to keep it clean. You gotta take fucking showers and baths and stuff. Well, baths. There's no have showers. To keep yourself from, like, being repulsive to other people.
Okay.
You can rob people, like, anywhere for any reason if you feel like it, or just greet them, say hey partner.
Cool.
Depending on the your feels of the day.
Nice.
I definitely ventured out into the wilderness and sought out a few campers to see how they'd react to me. I'd walk up to them and say, "You better move and pull out of here." Pulled a gun on me. I fucking shot the shit out of them. Just took their shit and left.
Psycho.
PCs.
He's psycho, Eugenia.
No, I saw a woman on the road. She needed help. Her horse died on her and fell on her leg. I helped her out and gave her a ride back to town. No problems. She was very gracious. I'm not a bad guy. I just don't like my guns being pulled on me. If they pull a gun on me, I'll shoot them.
Well, they were just trying to act in self-defense.
Self-defense, yeah.
Did they
Well,
know?
were they?
Did
No.
they know? They didn't let me
Did
speak.
you have your gun pulled on
Nope,
them?
I didn't. I was going to speak to them. I tried to speak to them. They pulled a gun on me instead.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
That
wait.
goes that way.
Sorry.
Sure.
So they pulled a gun on me, so I did the whole spray them with gunfire. And it was raining, so I used one of their tents to nap a little.
Oh, that was.
I just got two dead bodies over here. It's okay. It's in the middle of the night. Nobody's gonna notice.
Did you use them as a pillow?
No, I moved. I moved them out of the way so nobody can see them.
Well, that was smart.
But yeah, like I said, this game is almost simulator style, in the way it's set up. It's fucking great.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just play Raid Shadow Legends.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's like Pokemon times a million.
Hmm.
Except you never catch them all.
They catch you.
No, they just keep coming out with new fucking characters, and it's like never ending.
Good old Pokemon.
Yeah.
And if you all remember, there was Digimon.
That was shit. That was like wannabe Pokemon.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't. And then there was
I
like
mean, I
what
was
are they,
12, but-
Bakugan. There was like fucking Yu-Gi-Oh. Fucking. There's like probably 3 or 4 kind of like gotcha.
Yeah.
Tamagotchi.
Oh, that's different. That was like the original kind of.
Pocket Monster.
Do you all remember that court case when the couple was divorcing couple was dividing out their Beanie Babies?
No.
The couple had like this massive collection,
Right.
and in the divorce proceedings they had to like sit to the court of dividing who gets which
What?
Beanie Baby.
Oh fuck.
And so you have these two grown people in the middle of a fucking courtroom dividing
over
out
little
their
dolls.
fucking Beanie Babies that became worthless.
Yeah.
Like, not even a year after the fact.
Right.
Because it.
I was gonna say, I bet you like some of them still had some value. I think that.
I know, but the craze
the
was
reverse,
like,
but-
by the time that it was over, the craze was over, and so whatever collection they
yeah.
had, it ain't worth what they thought it was going to be worth at all.
So they went through this big battle and probably
Pennies.
didn't get the lawyers
Fucking
feedback
for
kind of
fucking
thing.
pennies, man.
I could see that.
The 90s were wild, man.
Yeah. You know,
How old are you? Do you mind me asking?
35.
Okay, you're not that far behind. You're my wife's age, actually.
Oh yeah. What are you guys like 40?
I'm 39. I just turning 40 this year. December 30th, so it's like right at the end.
Oh, right on.
So I'm basically 39 for the rest of the year.
Nice.
But 40 is this year for me, and she just turned 35.
Very odd. Yeah, my birthday's in December, so I'll be 36 this year. Fuck.
December what?
Summer?
No, December which?
No, my birthday's in the summer.
I heard the summer as December.
Yeah, I know. the summer.
Yeah. Well, my kids are divided out like fall, summer, and winter.
Cost effective.
I got one in July.
It's a very cost effective way to.
Well, not really, because December is still like, well.
Wow.
Yeah.
As long as they weren't all born in December, I think you're.
So
little better.
I'm December 30th. My son is January 11th. My wife is January 26th.
So that's I guess half your family.
And then there's Valentine's Day. There's Christmas. Right. So there's like all of that shit right at once.
That's good. My birthday's right at the end of the summer, so it's like. Well, August
Everybody's
27th.
already spent.
Yeah.
You want that?
So for me, it was like bittersweet because it's like, okay, well, yeah, my birthday's still in the summer, it's still nice, but then it's like, okay, well, I gotta go to school. It's very soon, right? It's kind of like the end of the summer, so that's like.
Yeah, but at least for you, they weren't like trying to question which grade you should go into.
Right.
For me,
yeah.
because I'm like straddling both years, they were
Yeah,
they were always like, should we send him into this grade or that grade?
Yeah, but I mean, intellectually, it's basically.
I ended up skipping a
that's-
grade because of it.
Yeah.
Just
That's probably
just
the more
so we're
important
clear.
thing. Yeah.
It worked in my advantage. I was in grade 5 in Israel. We moved here just before the end of the year, but it put me in grade 6.
Nice.
So I didn't have to do like 1 year of school.
You probably learned more over there, anyways. So you were probably equipped.
Tough to say. Because I went back at high school and I couldn't learn there at all. Because
Went back to Israel.
yeah, like culturally wise, it was so loud. Like everybody's speaking at the same time, kind of loud. And somehow something is actually happening, and everybody somehow is aware of that, except I wasn't. I'm like, oh, we had a lesson going on over here.
Oh, like you couldn't focus on what the teacher was
No,
saying?
because everybody's talking at the same time. Like, yeah, you can't imagine that
So
here.
how
You
the
can't
fuck?
even exactly. You
The
can't.
kids don't listen to the teacher?
They did.
How are they
But
listening
while
if they're
talking.
No, you can't listen and talk at the
So
same
this
time.
is like the difference in the culture right there. Like you could be talking at the same time while listening to the other person, and trust me,
Must be,
it's fucking stressful. I am not built.
Semite thing.
I am. I'm not built for. No, I am one, and I'm not built for it at all. Like
Wow.
I just. That's why I left again. Like, literally, why my last when I was 16, I wanted to get the fuck out of there because I was like, I can't do shit here. Nothing.
But at the same time, I know you've admitted that you've got like some kind of like either autism or some kind of spectrum
It's
disorder.
only
so
self-diagnosed.
Who doesn't these days?
It's only
Wow.
it's self-diagnosed for one, but for two, it would be something that I'd be so high functioning if I was on that spectrum that it's like it's neither here nor there.
Right.
I can talk to people, like I can talk to anybody, normally without pissing them off. Yeah, I can come off strong, I know. That's me. I come off strong. Right? Like, but at the end of the day, like, do I talk to you like I'm just some fucking weirdo out there in my own head, or do I try to come to terms with, like, I don't know, what you're saying?
Right.
I still have that social, right, capacity. I just don't let.
That's kind of the usual question, isn't it? The social interaction.
I just
like
don't
whether
let.
it's
I just don't let
jarring or.
I just don't let drive like the on paper method of like talk politeness and avoiding taboo, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's what I'm not good at, because I'm like, this is all arbitrary shit on paper. You said that to yourself. Like, why is that
Right.
reality
Right.
outside of what you said?
It almost makes it it almost seems like an excuse to say, oh, you have autism, for the fact that you question like the mainstream groupthink, and you dare to like be opposed to that and not care that people feel that social like distance. Right?
Yeah, like even if it was
It's
the
like
case,
pathologizing a normal reaction to like the sheep groupthink. Anybody who's not that and who's willing to like furthermore poke, because when you stand up for yourself, you're poking.
You're an outlier.
It's seen.
Like,
It's taken. It's
maybe my
taken as
reaction.
poking.
Maybe my reaction, if I were to be on the spectrum to begin with. Maybe my reaction is the reaction everybody's having, but mutes, and I'm not
But
able
normally
to. But I'm
muted.
not able to mute it.
Right.
Maybe.
Certain filter is having troubles.
So maybe I'm actually reflecting something more
like
a
a
discrepancy with the system rather than a discrepancy in my reaction.
Like
My reaction is just more extreme.
it's unfiltered, less filtered.
Right.
There's a spectrum of
Sure.
filtering, I think.
Well, that's empathy, I think. A lot of
Mm.
it.
Empathy is closer to adopting the other person.
Right.
When you're filtering, this is more like self-defense, even. Because
Self-preservation.
yeah, because empathy would actually allow the filter to pause, if only for a little while, to allow the story to get integrated into the other person.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you remove the filtering, not to like permanently be completely what do you call it, doormatty about it, but sort of like pause it, let the story in, then reincorporate the filter back and say like, okay, well, if this was me, this is the different decision that I would make here, for example.
Right.
But you've already accepted that other person's story. You're not negating their story. You're not saying you're stupid for doing this. You're saying, okay, I just wouldn't have done it this way.
I find that really interesting.
Filtering
that
is probably like, you're stupid for doing it this way.
perception of like this kind of antisocial autism stuff could be mistaken for empathy, and in fact, maybe in the case of like let's say it's an autistic person feeling an empathy, it almost translates in a weird way, like not filtering, like as if you just say what's on your mind because there's no other. It's like we're all one,
Right.
kind of thing.
Right.
Right.
You're not like factoring in their feelings in the situation.
As if they're separate. Those feelings that they would have, that it would be of an otherness, of
Right.
like, oh, I'm this category and you're that category. Whereas the empathy would be like, we're not, the category is something that you just poof up in your mind.
Right.
We are the same, right?
Well, the disconnect would be like, oh, that doesn't affect me, so therefore,
Why should I bother? Yeah.
right.
And we call that neglect usually.
Mm-hmm.
A kind of like stepping away.
It is a neglect because
no reward
the stacks are there.
There's no reward here. If I don't touch it, I'm not going to get punished.
Right.
I can just sweep it under the rug and not worry about it. So, but that doesn't mean that the story is not unfolding from other perspectives. That could still affect you after the fact, right?
Right.
Like if somebody's struggling with something, right? On the simplest example, and you neglect that struggle, just like shove it under the rug of like, okay, whatever, they're just depressed. But this thing is building in them, and the story is formulating about how this person is treating them this way, this person is treating them that way, this person is treating them that way.
Right.
By the time they come to you to speak the second time, they're going to be off in a fucking different world.
Right. Yeah. Dealing with their negative emotions.
Right, and so that lack of empathy and that neglect
Festers.
props up that situation, whereas in like assimilating a bit of the story despite its unreality. In fact, reality is not something we're too concerned with when we're discussing this model stuff. For that very reason, getting stuck on what's real and what's moral and what's that only is going to get you to argue with people. It's not going to get you to a better place, if you will.
Right.
Because what's the point of thinking something is real?
If we all
Yeah.
have our perspectives on what that is based on our experience with
Or rather,
that object
yeah.
type.
Or
What
what-
is a book? What is a chair? What is a couch?
So what? No, better question. Not those are the point. What is the outcome of thinking that way? And all we get is this person says it's this. This person says it's that. This other person says it's this. Nobody's technically wrong. Nobody's technically right. And what did we
To
get?
argue over
and
it.
what did we get out of this discussion of
There's
what's
no ending.
real? We got nowhere. We got like a
Right.
dog chasing its own tail for a little while. It felt like it was doing something. Felt good, I guess. And at the end of the day, it just chased its own tail and got nowhere quickly. So questions about what's real, what's moral, are anchors for argument. They're not questions for being together. They're not things.
It's
Yeah,
not
it's
something
kind of
they're not-
subjective.
It's not
all
something that ends.
they're not the things that are going to get us together to sit around the campfire and share our stories. Because
Right.
if our stories are going to be judged on what's real and what's moral, everybody's going to shut the fuck up. Because everybody's story is a little bit immoral to somebody else, is a little bit unreal to somebody else.
Yeah.
One way or another, there's going to be a discrepancy in the way they see what you said and what you meant and what they got out of it.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then there's context.
And then there is, you're not the same person that you were yesterday. So even if you were horrible yesterday,
Right.
what if that all it did is teach you a really good life lesson to never actually, what to never do again in your life?
And you changed. Now you're the most trustworthy person on that
Yeah,
issue.
I don't know if it can go on like a
I
switch
gave
like
a-
that, but
That could happen.
Obviously-
It can.
I'm using hyperbole for a reason. It's
Sure.
storytelling. You exaggerate, you
And
embellish a little.
your intuition is right, Dustin, because to take such a little change often requires a vast change
Oh, it's
of, the,
iterative.
of the whole being.
It would take.
Right.
It would be an iteration.
and that's like a
you see.
miracle, basically.
right.
What normally would happen to people if we make it realistic is that one situation started to get them to think differently. Another situation adds to it. They don't quite know how. Another situation, they still don't have a clear picture. But eventually, after situation, their entire perspective of like,
A
holy
new
shit,
pattern
Yeah.
emerge.
holy shit, like all
Start
like the
to
way I
realize
was
the error.
thinking was broken, so broken, and the only way I would have been able to recognize this brokenness is going through that process to begin with.
Right.
We're all
So-
capable of that.
Yeah, it'd have to be a pretty
So
extreme
now-
situation to
so now
be like
do we-
180.
Do we
Mhm.
punish the
Exactly.
body of the person that exists in that mind frame after the fact? To be real or moral?
So
Right.
you're talking about grace right now, basically religious concept.
No,
sort of.
I'm not saying that there's a right answer to the question. I'm not saying yes or no. What I'm saying is that now we have to ask the question is like, say this happened to the person, they're still living in the same body that committed all of these wrongs.
Right.
Are we going to be serving actual justice by, say, shoving that new being into the cage?
They've been rehabilitated though, right?
Well, I painted the case in which they have been, so we're going to take that by definition.
Right, and assume.
I'm not
Assume that
I'm not
they
saying
have
we
changed.
know which each who is who in this case. That's a
Right.
different question.
Okay.
But I'm talking about like to take that kind of individual.
Right.
What do we serve justice by shoving them, say, into a cage or removing them from society at that point,
Right.
where all the damage has already had been done and will never repeat, and because of the damage being done, it's going to be preventable if that person was still in society.
Well, I don't think
Like-
it'd be
like-
preventable if they were still in society. It'd be
Again,
preventable if
I'm
they
trying.
weren't in society.
I'm painting a very extreme, like
Right.
perfect case scenario. We can scale it back and to every step of the way before that, but
Right.
if we're in the business of asking ourselves moral questions, objective questions, what is what, right? What is real?
Mhm.
This kind of situation does not give us a clear picture of what we should do, what's real here.
Mhm.
Because on the one hand, you have this person's history of having committed that fact. On the other hand, you don't have that person living in
Are
that
they-
same body.
Is this an irredeemable criminal, or is this somebody who's been transformed?
Or how can we categorize anybody so concretely?
Right.
To really, really, really nail it down, how can we peg anybody into one category or
Well,
another
The thing is, I think
And move
you
on.
need forgiveness, but
and
if
then leave it there?
a weird thing comes up, if you find people manipulating the system to say that they've been changed, and once they get released because some judge believes that they've been Jesus, they saw Jesus or something, right? They get released, immediately murder somebody again.
So,
Once they come back in and claim that same thing again, it's
So
going to
the
be
question is-
there's like you can't recover from that. You know what I'm saying?
so the question is not which category did they appear in, whichever dream, whichever narrative.
Like that's the reality of it.
But
I
which
understand forgiving.
But which category do they keep appearing moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment? If somebody keeps killing people every single time in
That's what I'm saying,
in
and
every
then
one of those contexts,
even if
then you
if
can
they're
say
saying
But you don't have to peg them into the category of they're a constant murderer because they have murdered. It's because they do murder, right? And no, you wouldn't want to play it out just to see, obviously.
Right.
But that does bring me to another notion of how this kind of stuff has been dealt with before.
I wanna bring
people
up-
were incarcerated for being.
I want to bring up
They would just
less than social.
I want to
No,
bring
they
up
just killed them.
integration, and even we can
No.
talk about prehistoric tribes and that.
I'm
but the idea of
referring-
integration and that you come back.
Yeah.
But you, the people around somebody, you know if there's something wrong. That's what
Right.
I'm saying. You can't just put somebody back in society, put them up in a house, and that tell them to get a job when nobody interacts with them except for their caseworker. Right? If you have an actual integration with family and all that, you can tell if somebody's still screwed up, like if they've got issues, and like this should be more of a part of,
Yeah.
of our lives in our society. Is
This reminds me of
mental
exactly
health
what Vicky was
stuff.
saying in our chats, because she was talking about how in hunter societies before Canada got really colonized, she has the Métis background and all of that. So what they people who would misbehave in a tribe would not necessarily be completely shunned, because for things like going hunting and all of that stuff, they still needed people to actually go, right? So in their social structure, there was always this kind of opportunity to rehabilitate yourself by how you further interact with the tribe after the fact of whatever has happened. And another component to it, there would be an arbitration sort of session to see if this person who did somebody wrong could come to terms with the other person, and that would be arbitrated by the entire tribe. And that would continue on and on. But at no point did somebody get literally incarcerated and held down. If they did something horrific in the moment, and somebody were to like actually act
Even a
against it,
killing?
they would actually probably get killed in the process. That would be fine, because they were getting killed in the process of doing some harm, right? But at no point would they actually be held completely away from society. They would be given every chance to reintegrate themselves, in particular going through hunting trips and all of that kind of stuff to do all the hard work that's away from society to begin with. So there is
Seems like
some
a case by case basis. I
Oh,
don't
well, it
think that
definitely
that
would be,
like
and
a
that's why I
general
said,
rule.
and that's why I said if somebody would take
Well-
it too far, they probably instigate a situation in which they get themselves killed. Because
Here's another
people
thing.
aren't in the business of, hey, you're doing bad and you're about to attack all of us. Let's just wait and see what happens.
I'm
No,
not
they're,
sure
they're
if
going to
it's-
defend themselves
if it's
too.
in the Métis history or lore, but I remember hearing about
I was generalizing
this
too, by the
idea
way.
of
Yeah.
that if somebody commits a heinous quote unquote crime or whatever, like does real wrong to somebody else, there's this notion of that the family of that person would almost come groveling to the other family to like beg for forgiveness. Like literally everyone they know would come, like it's to that collection of people, like there's almost like
So the family of the wrongdoer
like a
would
social
would come to the other family.
like as social groups to try and make it right with the other social group of which was harmed, right? Because we're not even in a tribe. The bigger it gets, especially, I imagine, you're having kind of like different closenesses,
fallouts, different fallouts,
right?
kinds of fallouts.
So
good
the-
fallouts, bad fallouts.
But ultimately, the tribe is all kind of one, and but still, this kind of the immediate families, right, of this person would take the hit as much as they could, would just give everything they could in
To make that-
begging to be forgiven from this other side. Meanwhile, it's this guy's fault, and if he's going to do it again or anything like that,
His own he's got to
like,
answer to his own family too.
his whole family just sacrificed for him, right? It becomes a whole social thing which isn't in modern day justice system or anything like this,
Right.
right?
This,
It's a
this
totally
way of
different,
thinking, yeah, it's not there.
completely different. It's communal justice kind of.
And you have to do this because, like, you think about it. If you're talking before civilization, the people in your tribe are going to be somehow related to you in one way or another, because it's not that easy to actually travel far.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
so even interactions with your neighboring tribes would be like interactions with your extended families.
Well, I thought
I
they
get-
were nomadic people though.
Well, yeah, they move, but they move based on seasonal availability of what the land provides. So they would cycle around over
Yeah.
and over and over. Why would people move to places they don't know anything about without some kind of safety net? They don't. They didn't do that. That's like our modern way of thinking about nomadic life is just weird. If you
I heard
watch,
that
if
there
you watch
were-
grazing animals don't just migrate. They migrate to the same spots in a cycle. And this is exactly what we're seeing archaeologically with people.
Yeah, I was gonna
course.
say like,
And of course there will be some venturing
all
out, but
across
they would
Europe.
circle back and circle back and circle back and venture out further and circle back and circle back and circle back.
I
venture
heard
out
there's some
further.
like archaeological theories about that. Like
I mean,
all
you
of,
don't
all
want
of
to die
Europe
up there.
to be a migration of people all throughout Europe, like up and down from north to south, seasonally. Like there's kind of evidence they're saying of these kind of
they
highways, supermarket highways.
Cave paintings.
Kind
They have finally decoded the real, practical reason as to why cave paintings are there. What they often have is animal symbols, along with other markings. Beside, turns out these are calendars. They're marking which animals can be found where, when. How do they migrate? How do they move through nature? These
Right.
things are signposts, not stories of their families or whatever the fuck. Maybe some are at some point, but the vast majority of them are road signs.
of, well, why is it always a
Just road
picture of an
signs.
animal?
How to hunt, where, and what.
Makes sense.
And yeah, these people were advertising back then.
So is it just because they would forget, or who are
Is-
they advertising?
Just open
No,
source.
because it's what you needed to know.
You're saying it's open source, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
you needed to know if you're here at this point in time in the year. What do you need to do to survive?
Well, what I'm saying is, if they would go to the same spot every year, like you had said earlier, why would they need that when they were?
Because different groups migrated to the same places.
Well, why would they want to help different groups?
Why not?
So
They didn't really compete with each other. There was enough to eat.
Hmm. And in some cases, you were more afraid of scarcity and complete death and collapse of the society than rather than, who's going to get advantage.
right,
If you don't have enough people to clear cut the ground from food, each tribe that keeps coming to the same places has enough
right,
because nobody's taking too much.
right.
And that's how it worked for a long, long time until we had our ice age, and then once it's receded, huge grasslands opened up. You got pot, you got wheat, you got practically every crop that you can think of, corn, anything grasslands related
yeah,
became available to these wandering tribes that cycled through these lands after the ice age. And the first thing they did with it wasn't cultivate it for food, because that was non-reliable. If you have a drought, you're fucked, right? So generationally, they settle around these lands not for food specifically, but for alcohol, pot, tobacco, opium, whatever you can produce out of in mass quantities out of these drugs, because all of a sudden you have in your shamanistic society, in which drugs took quite a while to fabricate, all these cheap variations just out there for the picking.
Mm.
And so slowly but surely, control over these lands became something of a part of life. Eventually, the fact that they can be cultivated for food was also discovered, which created an even more need for grab stronger holdings of these lands. And so whoever wasn't strong enough to hold the land
Mhm.
became a worker
It
for
was
the
seen
land.
as a high value. Just looking at a
Yeah.
vast field with crops that just come up every year. Like,
And
that's
it-
high value.
And it would be in your benefit to work for that land, because what it meant is these crops
You're going to be
provide-
fed. You'll never be hungry again.
provided for what's called the feast economy. So these tribes that had access to this grasslands in in the vaster quantities could actually create these feasts to which everybody else was invited. But that invitation also carried with it a stipulation: you're now indebted. So maybe now you can work part of our fields to get credits in our feast. Now you're starting to see the beginning of the real
Or you have to build a credit first.
domestication,
Build a credit first, and then you can eat.
indebtedness, banking, all the very roots of civilization starting to drive. That's why I stick with that one.
Now, hold on. Listen. Sorry, do you got a comment? I have a quote here, which I think y'all will enjoy.
Who?
This was posted by Jacob recently.
Jacob
Yeah,
is
it's a
reliable.
quote from a book called Fields of Blood. I guess our religion and some history. So each of these faiths arose. It's talking about all the major religions, I presume. Each of these faiths arose in an agrarian society with plenty of motivation for violence. Landowners had to lord it over peasants, and warfare was essential to increase one's land holdings, the only real source of wealth before the great age of trade and commerce. So this is how people had wealth, was by owning and lording over land, basically. In each context, it fell to the
In reference to the fields.
In each context, it fell to the priestly class to legitimate the actions of the state, and so the martial ethos became bound up with the sacred. At the same time, however, the faiths developed ideologies that ran counter to the warrior code. Which I think,
The martial ethos became one with the sacred. So you're born in sin on the one hand, you're born in debt on the other. It's the same statement. It's said two different ways. One says you're born deficient, the other says you're born deficient. You owe. You just owe. So this is what they're saying. Not only did there's the market thing, that's the realistic one where you really owe, you're in debt. And then there is this mythological space in which why you owe, because you're a sinner. That's what it's talking about, how our religion is developed around to justify the situation. Fucked. Yes, it is fucked. I'm not saying it's not.
Right.
A way to control people.
Well, yes, but also why religion can never be separate from a state.
guilt. And isn't this what I find interesting is a lot of these religions, they're based in guilt, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing action based on guilt, like that's coercion. That's being pressured to do something. That's not anything that comes from inside of you.
But no, I think you're just trying to live up to an impossible ideal. That's what it is. It's like got this perfection kind of way up here, what you're striving for, what you'll never reach, right? But any kind of like little thing that you do that doesn't quite meet the expectation,
Right, it
is
just kills
considered
you.
Sin.
It
Right.
feels bad to be shamed. Oh, you didn't live up to that. So it's like you just keep trying to do something, but
Right.
it doesn't seem like a healthy cycle. You're not developing, you're not getting better.
Right.
It just kind of holds you into this stasis where you keep striving for that never perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I find that really interesting about like when you look at what people kind of make fun of Catholic, I guess, about
Right.
is like the idea that you can just go Sunday and repent on your things
Atonement,
and you can do whatever you want,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
It's kind
that's-
of I don't know why Catholicism kind of catches that major flack, but
Well, because you're confessing your sins, so then that
it's-
absolves you.
it's like because they have this this ritual called confession,
Right.
Where it's like, every week you just go in and say what you did, and then he's like, okay, but don't do it next time.
Right.
Come next week and you
say 10 Hail
it was the
Marys
same
and-
thing again, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not it just doesn't seem there's not a relationship happening. A mysterious shadow figure behind the box saying, okay, don't do it again,
Right.
or whatever.
But I think maybe it was just mostly
Like it's
to,
so arbitrary.
absolve yourself like mentally from it. Because,
Yeah, but there's no
you would feel more guilty holding on to. Yeah, of course it can be abused, right?
Mhm.
And then once
Yeah.
you recognize, okay, what I did was wrong.
But that recognition, simply stating to the Catholic priest that in your ritual confession of what you did is wrong, what you did that was wrong, and they say,
Guilt.
okay, don't do it, the guilt, right, doesn't mean that you in your heart of hearts is realizing and understanding that that's actually wrong what you were doing,
Right.
right? That's a
But
body.
to recognize it,
That's a
yeah.
body reaction. So, right, what you're saying, I think, with that point is that in your head, it's like a blockage. It just stops it from being realized, and
Right.
you just keep going on, doing the same fucking thing over and over
Yeah.
again. It's
So, like,
Catholicism
in-
takes flack for that.
In theory, you can learn from it.
But-
you can grow
It's
from
because
it, whatever,
it's
right?
because
Like,
it's trying to see to, if I may, on the smallest information that I gotten out of both of you, what it's trying to do, Catholicism, is trying to take the real, the thing that had happened, and put it into symbolic, uttered form, the confession,
right.
and then to pretend that that confession was the real thing, as if it's somehow solved in this cloud space of where the
No, it's
words are
solved.
spoken.
Yeah, so that's an improper
Right.
use of metaphor.
So the words were spoken, all the symbols got moved around, we got a resolution that does not reflect anything back to where the situation actually arose
Right.
from.
So the body itself,
For
that
why the sin was committed or why you did what you did.
even
Why is it a sin?
considering the body.
Why is
all.
it even the sin to begin
Right.
with?
Well, the sins are already like laid out.
That's another story, but yeah.
Well, it's all
S-
like,
sin is
there's
weird.
examples of
Sin is weird in Christianity because on the one hand it does follow the Old Testament for its rule set, but
Right.
on the other hand it also states that it's a new covenant and so a different binding agreement.
the Nicene.
So
Whatever.
it
Yeah,
actually
that's
says that it's
after.
it posts itself as, and this is scriptural actually, it posts itself as a fulfillment of the rule set. So Christ,
Right.
in his example, if you will. So this is what Christian means, Christ-like, right? So if you follow Christ, you're Christ-like, and if you follow his example, you're fulfilling all of the old commandments
Right.
without having to know or really care about all the rule sets and the dispositions of what they were,
Right.
because that behavior already kind of fulfills it, right? So Christianity is weird in that sense, in that you can't go back to the really old rule set to tell you that this is sin, this is the sin, this is the other sin, this is the other sin. So what you're
But
getting
that's based off of Judaism, though. That's
exactly,
already been established.
exactly, which Christianity says I am the new covenant of, therefore fulfilled.
Right.
Don't have to keep going back to it. Doesn't mean it doesn't count. It just means it's fulfilled already. So it's we're basically trying to beat a dead horse. It's done.
Right.
It's over with. This is finished was the last words of Christ.
Because
And this is
from,
not
from
none of
what
this
I
is an
gathered,
accidental description of the rhetoric.
what I gathered, there had to be continual sacrifice in the kind of Jewish tradition, which ritually ritually continue
a physical
on,
sacrifice,
right?
yes.
Whereas Christ in the Bible, New Testament would say, this has been
I
fulfilled
cover all of
in
it.
the sacrifice of the Lamb of God, kind
Right.
of thing. It's been
This
done.
lamb is all
He
the
died
other
for our
lambs.
sins.
We don't need to keep doing
so
this.
I'm the lamb that's all the other lambs that you've been slaughtering already. To slaughter anymore is useless.
Right.
So, coming back to the confession booth, you don't actually have a biblical scriptural basis on which to name which sin you've committed to for confession. That's where that trips up.
Well, yeah. There's
Because
established-
Christ's commandments are two: love God with all your might, strength, and will, all of that crap. Second
and your
commandment:
neighbor.
love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
By loving your neighbor, you love God. So
Right.
this is only one commandment, really:
Thou
love your
shalt
neighbor.
not steal. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife.
No, these were
There's
these
Again,
were these were wrapped up
Covered by love.
in the New Testament.
Would you steal something from somebody you love? Would you covet somebody's
Yeah.
wife
Damn
who
right.
you love?
Well,
How,
what
are
does
you?
love have to
That's
do
not.
with it?
Are you crazy? Like how you kind of call that love? while doing that?
But the-
Are you
it
using
Right.
the
needs to be broken
word?
down further. Love is very
No.
general.
You're just using the word love to excuse yourself for not loving. Love is not something. Love is not a quantifiable thing like the formula ABC equals love. You can't
Okay.
say that. Love is something
So
you
how
know
can
is
say
like
what
you
love
know.
Is not, then?
No, love is
just said-
something you know is there or you know it is not there based on how the interaction went. It is something that we either do or we do not do,
Right.
and you feel it. You don't. You don't say it. You don't.
And you were talking
hear
about
it.
this idea of coveting
You
your
don't hear it.
neighbor's
It's
wife
how
or something.
something else is
Right.
done.
Like,
Is something else done in love or something not done in love? That's what you feel. You feel how something else. Love is a quality of something. It's not a. It's not something you can point to and say.
right. And
ABC
so,
equals
if you're
love.
internalizing this feud of, oh, she's mine, oh, that's
There's no love there.
where. What is this?
This is a transaction.
I don't know.
Yeah, you do know.
You know it's not love. And
She's
how you
mine.
know, just how you know that getting revenge at somebody is never going to be actual justice. It's going to
Okay,
feel good. It's going to
so-
feel good, but it's not going to be justice. And you know it in your heart, and you don't know why, and you can't say exactly what makes it not justice or justice,
Right.
except for how that was done.
Okay, so what about this? I'm gonna beat my kid because I love them.
But
How does that make sense?
it doesn't.
Okay, well,
So-
in my
so-
mind,
so-
in my mind, I'm teaching my kid how to do
Yeah,
this
but
and
the
this
word
and
you-
this and become
but the
a man.
thing you're
right?
calling love isn't what love is.
So no,
the
now
qua-
you're
that-
now you're
that
going
quality-
and saying something subjective that.
Well, no,
love
because
to
the
me
quality
means that
the-
I'm doing the best
how are
thing
you
for my kid.
Where is the love in beating? Tell me this.
To-
Tell me tell me
That's-
how is beating loving? Look, show me what is loving about beating.
It's probably ultimately going to come to some system.
it's kinda
Like, oh, I had to
subjective.
teach him this
all I'm
system or
saying.
that system.
So that's not love to you, but that could be love to somebody else.
That's because you're trying to attribute love to being a qualifiable thing of an action.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is it's not the action, it's the action in the context in which it was expressed. So both
Okay.
sides of the coin count. If that action is to move the context into more, how do you call it, living,
Yeah.
then you can see the love in that. You can see the justice in that. You can see the beauty in that. You can
Okay,
see the art
so-
in that. You can see the dance of it. You can see how it's life.
Okay,
And then if
so-
you see the death of it, then all you're seeing is the meat grinder. You see the mechanicals of it. You see the machinery. You see grinding and destruction and all of that kind of
Okay,
chaotic
and then
shit.
we change the meaning of beating to be, okay, I'm going to force my son to study
You're in this
against
it's
his
a s-
own will. It's not going to be pleasant for him.
Shania, you know about
Right.
this argument.
So
don't
this
you?
one is
So-
a tougher.
Your kids.
This one is a tougher
Tough
one.
love.
No, this one is a tougher one.
Because you're beating them on behalf of the system,
There-
so that
yes.
they're not going to get pain from the system later
That
on.
I
Right.
would. I do not call that love. I call that more like. I would call this more closer to survival. That mechanic comes from more of a survivalistic mechanism. It isn't.
Okay, so
it
if
isn't
it's
love.
not physical abuse,
Doesn't matter.
That is
Every
a very-
every time I try to force my
It's a
kid to
very
do
important
anything,
point.
all of this feels like I'm doing it on behalf of a foreign entity.
it's
I do
not
not.
love though.
I do not feel it to be
not love.
love. I am on. The only
Okay, so
loving,
if you didn't
the
love your
only
kid, would
loving,
you do that?
the only loving component in it is the realization that if I do not do this, I could stand to shorten their actual life.
Okay, and you don't do that because you love them. Why would you care otherwise?
I don't feel like I have. It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. You choose do you choose this shit pile or that shit pile?
Okay, well, all I'm saying is that love is subjective. So love to you might mean
No, I
something
don't.
different
I
than
don't.
what
I
it
don't
means to
consider.
somebody else, right?
I don't consider putting them into either shit pile to be love. Love for me would be to do what I'm doing now to such an extent in which I don't have to put them into that position at all. That would be love. And
But they need-
on that
you
front,
don't
I'm
think they
doing as
need
much as
to-
I can too. But I know I never reach that particular goal because I'm also realistic.
But okay, so
There's the ideal.
they do need to go through some kind of hardship in order to realize what good times are and what good, you know,
Need is a funny
to be able
word.
to deal with
Need
that,
is a funny word. Most
right?
of the hardships that they were gonna have to go through are not the ones that they need.
Maybe,
Because they're
maybe not.
imposed by other people who think that they should be imposed, but they shouldn't. And those are the people I disagree with the most.
But whether or not you disagree,
Well, my point is that I don't consider either or to be a factor of love. The only loving characteristic there is to not get them killed,
right?
and that is like being so far removed from being able to make the decision. It's disheartening and sad and it's depressing.
Right.
To me, it's like a platform.
So I can't love my children the way I want to
To
because of the
exist in
society. I
society,
live in.
you have to operate at this level. There's no outside of that is basically homelessness,
Right.
you know, psychological issues, death on the street.
Okay.
And that's selling them even shorter.
So, in your eyes, there's no such thing as tough love. There's just love.
There is just love, and everything else is not hate. Like, no, it's not the opposite of love. It's just so bereft of choice that it's just a mechanical survival.
Isn't it like
mechanism.
isn't it like sympathy? That word it came up a couple of times.
It's
in
it's
my
it's
thinking.
it,
like
it,
a thing
it's a
for
step above
sympathetic.
nihilism. It's a step above nihilism of just being resolved to the fact that this is what you have to work with, but at least not being resolved to the fact that this is all you'll ever have to work with.
Right.
There's you can still make it better,
Just is what it is.
but you got to start at the very fucking bottom, and it's a shit pile. And I'm not going to paint it any other way. Those things that I do for my own children cannot be considered loving from the perspective of what I think love is. They're only going to be considered of like, okay, well, let's postpone death a little bit so we can get to love. You know, so that it's not completely hopeless.
I don't know. I think it's just subjective. Like, you've got your own idea of what love is and what that means to you. So
Well,
I don't think that can be a defined thing.
another
Well,
feature of
it's-
pre-civilized tribes is
it's-
that they didn't coerce their children like this. They didn't.
Well, I don't know if there's any way of knowing that.
There's
It's because the
it's
system,
observable today in some tribes.
the way
still.
the economy and the system works, there is no love in it. Where we operate as enemies, trading as enemies. All we care about is cash. Do you have the money? Okay, I give you the goods.
Right.
You give me the goods, I give you the money, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? That's not. This
if
isn't.
not, there's conflict. Let's go to court.
It's
or get more tribal.
No.
Right.
I'm telling you,
It's
tribal.
just
The
a-
tribal
it's a
reaction is
laundered-
not to fight.
It's a
because
laundered
A
relationship.
tribe doesn't have enough people to keep fighting. Tribes are small. If you keep fighting, you're gonna have a lot of injured people, and a dysfunctional tribe. Why do people keep thinking that fighting
Right.
is what tribes
You
did?
can only have war on a mass scale through.
Industry. Only industry can supply a war on a mass scale. Small battles, sure. Nobody's saying the world was not violent before civilization. That God knows I don't say that. But think about it. With the limited manpower that a tribe has, to throw that shit simply away at frivolous battles over crap? Nobody did that. Because it means a complete...
Maybe they didn't know any better though.
Well, didn't they they didn't know that it would mean the lives of their children? Because who could not fend for themselves? Of course they did. Very calculated risks. Those
Seems that way.
fights are very calculated risks. And you only see an escalation in the civilized world. You don't see that escalation, at least in the archaeological record, with primitive societies. You see violence here, there, sparse, right? Like years and years and years apart, unrelated to each other. Maybe one recycling
Pardon?
feud over here, but nobody actually wants to live like that. Like, I mean, would you live like that?
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't want to.
So much energy spent over wasting lives.
Especially without written record, too.
When you can't get
how
that-
can you hold feuds over generations when there's nothing written
Nobody's
down?
remembering them.
Wow.
Unless you sing it into
People.
song. Oh, these people are fucking assholes.
Sure, they did that.
Do 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 do. We
Well, I'm
hate
saying-
them.
you will see like what do you call it?
Blood feud.
You would see some blood feuds here, there, but they'll be like so far outside the norm
Right.
because almost everybody is like, can I just like sew my shit together so I don't have to, soak in water? I don't have time to like wield my axe over somebody who wants a tree over there.
Right.
And objects didn't mean that much to people. Like it
I don't
were,
know. What do you think about the Spartans then?
they were part of the civilized world. They were already part of
were-
the industrial.
Basically born as warriors.
That's
ever
a
since
profession.
birth.
That's an
they're
industry.
Training to be warriors.
How is that not an industry? It's literally a
But
factory.
it goes against what you just said that it's not in their better interest to be fighting over land.
No, I'm saying Sparta existed as a factory. It didn't exist as a tribe. It was already industrialized. It was part of the
So
industrial
you're talking
war.
way before that point. Then,
So
I guess.
by the time we get city-states, you can think of each state being their own internal factories.
Mhm.
They're mass-producing equipment. So the delay between making those decisions and getting killed by those decisions is vastly removed. Right? So you can be a soldier in 1,000 battles and die on 1,001.
Right.
That kind of stuff. So the industry really removes the natural
When you-
cause and effect.
when you talk
out of
about
the
industry-
picture. Not completely, but by delay.
It
I'm talking
reminds
about
me
mass
of this.
production.
It reminds me of this quote that we pulled up earlier. One's land holdings, the only real source of wealth before the great age of trade and commerce.
Right.
Industry gets pumped through trade, commerce, out to the world. Whoever needs this, you can have a factory
Right.
that doesn't produce for just your locality, but you can specialize and sell to the world potentially.
And
Right?
Sparta
That's the great dream of
produced
trade.
soldiers. And Sparta produced and exported soldiers. It was a factory
So
of
they
soldiers.
they would be like warriors for hire then? Is that
Yes,
what you're trying to say?
yes. Mercenaries. Not by official title in this
Okay,
case,
I thought
because
they just dealt with like protecting their own land though.
no, these guys were far more involved in their political landscape than that.
But like working for what? The Roman Empire.
Spartans, no, they predate that. Spartans are before the Roman Empire. So Spartans is the Greek Empire,
Right.
and the Spartans were involved heavily in the Persian War. That's the whole 300 story.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was like, but like again, if you think about it, if you think of Greece as like an industrial complex, then you'd have Sparta as the warrior production factory. You have your Athens as your politician production factory.
Mhm.
It's basically like each city is doing its own factory work. Together they are Greece. That's how it used to work there.
Okay.
With the Alexander taking over, and then further
Now,
the Roman Empire taking over, what happened is that this entire industrial complex that used to behave more often on its own, each factory for its own self, and coming together for common interests, it consolidated it all into one bureaucracy. And now you have a
Yeah.
complete full-blown military empire.
I don't
And
know
thi-
if
this-
I'm buying that, but I don't
through
really
this-
know enough about it to
through this
argue with it,
bureaucracy,
so.
that would be you would need that before you can really
Look it up.
sell
Doesn't really make sense.
to sell mercenaries abroad.
Well-
Is that what you're saying? Like,
No, I'm saying Greece used to exist as its own city-states, not like it didn't used to have that unified picture of an empire.
and it
that
did
you'd
get
think of.
unified.
But the way they operated, because it was in their mutual interest to support one another in some way, one created this, the other
Sure,
created
fine.
that, the other created this, right? They were all different factories of things. That kind of gave them an imperial-like picture overall, which caused them to be a huge force to fight against, to say, the Persians and all of that kind of traditional empires. come Alexander and later Rome, all of these different factories became under an umbrella of one single management empire.
You're talking Rome like Italy.
So Greece became an empire, and then Roman from Italy took most of what Greece had done and just sort of continued picked up the baton and continued on the same governing structure. So you'll find that most Roman gods have been adopted from Greece under different names. You have Saturn and you have Zeus. You have Ares and you have Mars. Those are the same gods. So our planets are named after the Roman ones. Did I say Jupiter already?
no.
Jupiter, I forget which one is Jupiter. Venus is Aphrodite, whatever. Anyway,
Translations.
I could be wrong about the actual mapping of the gods, but you'll find that they have done exactly what I'm saying. You'll find each one
It's all
labeled now.
like pagan kind of shit.
But the point is that they adopted the Greek system like almost to
So
a T.
what I'd find interesting
So
is
there's
like,
a little difference between Rome and Greece. Once that sort of
like
blending got
Sparta,
together.
you take the Sparta, what they have learned there in that city, how to train up warriors, and this through say like a bigger Roman context would be like, okay, we've got all these mini Spartas everywhere now, like the
Or
factories expand,
mercenaries.
right? If you want to learn how to do better governance, you go to Athens and get all these, have a mini Athens.
So it's like becomes like their universities for
Like
doing
schools,
these
yeah,
things.
right.
Yeah. Anyway, the bigger picture of it all is that even though Greece was actually quite independent, in each city state was relatively independent, we see a shift of all of that becoming very interdependent. So that's like the shift. So now we're seeing a shift from tribalism, which kind of predates the city state, in which everything is more or less a gift, then into this land ownership, in which we get the city states, and you have your trade start to build up, and then through the trade connections, furthermore, you see this full integration of all of this disconnected city states into a full-blown empire. So you see those like this self-begetting trajectory of like this begets that, begets this, begets that, and it's all like conforming into this one amorphous, faceless entity
So-
at the end.
Just a note, in Portal Mountain terms, we've been talking about a transition between city, state, and empire,
Yeah,
basically.
we literally have that transition, yes. And from empire, we have a transition into nation. So that what happens so that transition is within the empire, the industries become stronger and more capitalistic by nature. So the market develops into its more explicit state, if you will. So now you have within the empire sub-empires, corporations building up, companies, the East India Company from UK or whatever. Oh, you know what I mean. Look, we have actual history to back this up, kind of stuff.
Hudson's Bay Company.
Yeah. Like all of these kinds of incarnations of like the empire gets like these mini empires, but now commercial ones, sort of existence.
Right. Well, that was like about fur trading, about
Yes.
like fucking
And then you take
whaling,
that,
all kinds of shit.
and then you take that to the extreme. We see also in our history, all these empires break apart into all of these commercial nations. This nation is providing this product to this nation. This nation is providing that product to this nation.
Right.
It's just a big ass market of nations, and so we have a disintegration of the empire. So first we had a consolidation of city-states into one, and then a disintegration of one into these self-sufficient nation-states
Right.
who do a little bit of everything for
Like
themselves.
globalism.
And then we have a consolidation of that back into globalism, essentially, and we
Right.
call that.
International trade.
The
Well, no.
corporate state and the virtual state.
So yeah, between the nation is like an intermediary between a full-blown corporation as state, in which you have a corporation behaving as empire. So Canada, U.S., when the UK empire divided itself out, you had all these corporate entities that were called governments. This controls this section. This controls that section. This is our modern map. And then, within that, we have cross-national corporations forming, right? Which are creating their own virtual states on top. So, yeah, it's...
Seems like it's all connected more now.
Yeah, and do we seem a little less crazy this time?
Doubtful.
Yeah, I mean, that's
The hardest sell...
one world government kind of...
The hardest sell is to explain that all the crop, all the grasslands that we initially cultivated to cause the agricultural revolution after the fact were not there to be used for food from the onset, because that's a hard sell, because everybody thinks that this is what made us settle to begin with, right? That's the running story. But the reason that that's almost impossible in my head is because if you were one of those people that is first coming across these kinds of crops, and you already have a tried and trusted and true way of survival of nomadic lifestyle, it makes zero sense to, like, out of nowhere settle there, risk all of that ability to collect actual known for, accounted for food on a grassy field that could have famine next year. Like, that risk would not be. It's not realistic.
It's called a bifurcation, and people do take the risk. Some do, some don't, and both. It splits. Culture splits.
I guess it's like, if you're after comfort, then you would want like a more stable environment to
What it points to is that the utility of those fields was initially not nutrition oriented. People weren't relying on them to get their sustenance from.
So the idea of
That's not what they're glued to.
making alcohol.
Alcohol, on the other hand, that was productive, because you can come across a field like that and be like, we can make a shit ton of alcohol with what is there right now.
Even through trade, a tribe that controls a field can trade for
alcohol.
whatever food they want. Bring in all the game, endless game, for just keep giving alcohol, right?
Which is a storage
ferment,
mechanism. An alcohol is a storage mechanism for
right, self-preserves.
For all these grasses. So the only reason to have this alcohol is to preserve the damn thing. So yeah, like, the entire fucking industry of agriculture, it does not start with nutrition whatsoever. It starts with not alcohol, but drug production specifically, because it wasn't just grains, it was hops, barleys, weed.
Mushrooms.
No, mushrooms were available throughout the forest, and that's not even that's like one of the that's not even a thing there. Tobacco, anything that produced buzzes, highs, all of the shamanistic kind of stuff, which was now available to the masses.
Right. People have always wanted to get fucked up, I guess.
People have always known how to get fucked up, but now they had a very cheap, easy, accessible field from which to produce that shit from.
Right.
And now, I don't know. And this is the other thing I keep forgetting to mention. You take those kinds of people that just got introduced to that field, and then wait maybe 200 generations. The people at the end of that stretch forget why this is all being done. So if they start utilizing the field over and over and over, and 200 years pass, the people at the tail end of that story don't know why they started doing that. It's just what you do.
Right.
It's part of your life now. So this is just what you do. And so it normalizes and becomes more and more ingrained. And the fields are getting used for more. And oh, wait, we can make bread.
Well, the part of the point was you have a field now, you have to protect it because people want that
Well, okay,
alcohol.
that dynamic
and if
comes
they
into
don't
play
have,
too.
If they don't have money, they're going to try to steal it. So you have to start protecting this field.
Yeah, you don't want to
And
be
it all
driven.
goes
You,
from
you don't
there.
want to be driven off of it. You don't want to be raided.
And you've
and then
right
be
away,
taken
you've
over.
already forgotten what it's all about. You just need to
And
fucking
look at
protect
that.
that.
That
shit.
looks exactly like what mafias do. Right there, in the entire scene, in the very beginning of human, what's called civilization, you have mafia. People just like trying to raid the field and take it over for themselves, get rid of the people that are already on there,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And then just keep going.
And they're not
No, but this
nice.
is how they operate. Mafia's in the. Have you never watched Peaky Blinders? Watch some. Watch some Peaky Blinders. It's actually quite fun to see how that
What's that?
dynamic.
It's like prohibition back in Britain.
It's Britain passed right after World War One, so the people that came back from World War One, duking it out with each other about like who owns what business, who's in charge of the workers, and all of the shit that caused labor laws to actually become a thing
Right.
because of how abusive all of that shit was.
And
That's
they're
what I'm saying. That's
they're all
That's
trained.
how the mafias started
They're all
in
trained
Italy.
in combat, right?
exactly, and they're all killers.
Doesn't the mafia, isn't that like an extension of like the church in a way?
No, the mafia is business except on other books. They all operate under the exact same principles.
Right.
The military-industrial complex is essentially the biggest mafia there is. The only thing about it is that it's legal on paper, and so if you go to a court and you try to actually have anything, it's the law.
But as far as I know, like a mafia is more like a union that you basically pay your dues to get into, right? They
And
own
what- and-
monopolies. They
Okay,
own.
and which part of the government is not some kind of elitist club that has its own specific members? Like Clinton, Bush, and all of these assholes know each other through ties outside of being presidents.
Right. Yeah.
They're all part of the same game, business-wise.
Right.
That's mafia. That's right there.
Yeah.
It's just hiding in plain sight. It's just like one we call legal, the other not legal.
Right.
But government and mafia don't look different. And that story begins at the very beginning of the fields. If you look at those fields and like their value to producing that alcohol, and if you're the tribe who say controls it, and you say instead of being taken over by your rivals or other tribes, you say you work part of my field to produce said alcohol, and so every so often we'll have our feast.
Right.
You're getting a buy-in, right? So
Yeah.
you get to be the king.
So
They
you
get
were
to
trying
be your
say that the guys
thieves.
taking from the fields are the mafia, and I'm saying no. The guys
No,
owning
no.
the fields are the
You
mafia.
imagine another tribe that goes, I want that field. They go in, raid it, kill anybody who is actually supposedly in charge of it, and now
Yeah.
they're in charge of it.
Yeah.
That interaction between these different tribes, that's the same interaction that you see between mafia bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same
Yeah.
interaction that you see between, say, Putin and fucking Ukraine.
Well, what is
I
a mafia?
I want that oil field.
It's all this ego.
You got Nazis in your
ego
in your land.
structure.
I'm gonna go and clean them out.
It's all ego structure, one above another. Who's above the other? Who has more power, more
Who
status?
decides they're above the other, and forces that way through. There's many ways to fucking see that, yeah. But again,
Mhm.
now you take that scenario and stretch it out to another 100 years, and now you have people who don't remember why, just how. So you got people who know to raid these lands because they could be the boss, they could be the next boss, they could be the slave owners. By slave owners, I mean they could be the ones that get other people to work their fields for them so that they could supply the feast, be
Right.
the boss. Basically another plantation, just a little bit more primitive in a sense.
Right. It makes you wonder what's all.
Develop this another couple of 100 years, like
What's
say
all the-
500,
the
and now
point
you have
of-
full-blown slavery.
What's the point of talking about slavery when the system itself is slavery?
Another point to make here is that humans were the very first animal to be domesticated. And there was that process of working those fields that domesticated the human, and which progressed into us domesticating the rest of the animals that we can find to ease the fucking burden of being domesticated ourselves.
Right. You just push others down.
Yeah.
You push others down so you'll lift yourself up.
Yeah, we slave each other. We slave animals. We fucking.
But,
Whatever, right?
but domestication did not start with animals. Domestication started with us.
Well, because we're the top of the food chain, forcibly.
But how to say that we are the most highest species out there,
We're the most
above
intelligent,
everything
for
else,
sure.
and all of that, and yet to be the very first victims of being domesticated as a fucking what do you call it, animal?
Why would you say you're a victim though? You don't think that's
Because
like part of
humans are the
evolution?
first species to be domesticated by the system.
But it's out of necessity. It's out of survival. It's out of evolution. If we didn't do that, then we would
That is
So-
a true
Yeah.
point,
We survived without the domestication beforehand.
and that's a good counterpoint. Not barely. No, we're give it as it was another 100,000 years, another 100,000, still surviving. Could potentially.
Maybe not.
Well,
Well,
think about nowadays when nukes could fly and literally destroy everything.
yeah, okay.
Maybe not. Right? It's always maybe not.
Nothing changed.
Right.
So we didn't move anywhere
But
further.
we did it out of necessity, though. It's not like it was
Which
like,
necessity?
forced upon us.
What was the necessity?
For us to grow as a species and populate
Grow
more
into
of the
what?
earth. Survival, like basically.
But we
grow,
were surviving.
like,
No,
again, barely,
no,
10%.
hold-
It reminds
Hold
me
on.
of that. It reminds me of
Hold
that
on.
businessman's story.
Dustin, you need to think about just a tribe existing as a family. We're all
Right.
one. We're all just making stuff. Why does cousin Vinny suddenly want to like enslave and coerce some of his cousins to start doing some side job to gain his status, to somehow have a power above people? And it's like this thing, like,
Like,
how,
who the fuck is Vinny?
how are you saying like that's well, we have to grow. So yeah, okay. So
Why
cousin
is
Vinny
that
has to start taking over these
Cancer grows.
slaves.
Yeah.
Cancer grows
Right?
too.
You got when you say you gotta grow, it's like okay, but what?
Well, humans
By
are
which
cancer
method?
on the earth, so,
By what method are we growing?
But do we have to be though? I mean,
Yeah,
we
do.
made that of
Pretty much.
ourselves.
Pretty much.
I don't believe that. Not for a
Well,
split second.
Do we have to
Yeah.
what? Grow?
Be cancer on this planet.
Do we have to be cancer?
Oh
yeah.
We
Oh,
weren't.
obviously.
We weren't.
Of course we do.
We weren't.
course
for,
we do,
We weren't
man.
for a good over million years, and only in the last 10,000 years we are.
No, we have to be.
How does the last 10,000 years account for the previous few million? Honestly, like no.
Right. So
It's
the
just not
problem
necessary for
is
survival.
describing what the cancer is itself and how it works, and that's different.
Humans
So-
exploit the land. They exploit animals. They exploit whatever they can, each other.
Well,
For
that's
survival.
the
for
narrative.
not for survival. Hold on, for profit. This is the
To
capitalist.
prosper.
The capitalist. No, not to prosper. For profit.
Okay.
You're talking people who already own
Live comfortably.
multi-billion shit.
Let's
They're
just say
already
live comfortably.
they're prospering. They're already doing comfort. They are now in profit territory. This is what runs things. They've
For
already passed
profit,
way
for profit.
past what they need. Now
We're talking
they
about the beginning, though. We're not talking about like.
Well,
no. We have to say what is it that's happening? It's
We-
capitalism. What is capitalism? It's taking capital as the god we worship, which is capital is something that
more capital.
increases its own self.
Right.
The definition of capital, in my opinion, is it effectively should be that which increases itself. It's not just property. It's not just commodity. It's the commodity
Currency.
or property put into a system which multiplies itself to pull in, to increase. So if we're
What's
all
capital
doing
without
this,
labor?
if we're all doing this, it's just a system that grows for just to grow. Capital becomes multiplied. That's all you care. You don't. There's no care for the underlying biology of the humans that are involved in this system.
Right.
It's
Or
that
the
this
environment.
commodity must fucking double itself. Period. That's all the organization cares about.
That's capitalism.
This
yeah.
exactly, but this is devoid of any meaning to the bodies who are participating in it.
like,
Right?
How much bleach do you need
Complete
in the world
disconnect.
before you fucking choke?
So here's my point: is we need
you
to
can sell all the bleach on this fucking
we need
planet,
to
but then you drown.
forget
it.
about
What
Trump
then?
for 1 second. we need to
It wasn't
identify the point.
It was bleach.
We need to identify the point of departure where this becomes a runaway system. It wasn't always greed and capitalism.
Right.
It wasn't always like that. So there's a point of departure, and that's what I call capital. When you're saying, hey, I've got this much, I want to fucking double it, whatever it is. This idea has nothing to do with the underlying economy of the people and the space and the environment. It's just you want to fucking double this. That's a mind game. I want double of this commodity.
You reduce it to numbers, and then you play with the numbers.
I want 2 of them. It's nothing. So this is the disconnect which allows the cancer. That type of thinking. I want a bigger bank account. I want this and that.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the underlying economy of people and needs and like what we're doing together.
And by needs, we're talking about things like you need to eat, you need to sleep,
Yeah.
you need to be
Right.
warm.
Which is
You
a
need-
such
you
a
can't
tiny
avoid.
fraction,
You can't
like,
avoid these things.
the
Those
amount-
are real needs.
The amount we spent in war this year could feed half the earth. Like the last couple of years, right? Like we're not doing that. We want to double our thing. And so we own defense contractors, we own guns and weapons, and so, owning the politicians say let's fucking buy into this next. They don't want to win. Nobody
So
wants to
imagine-
win war.
imagine
Winning
you're-
war is the worst thing because then you have to stop buying.
Here,
they
I-
stop
they don't
buying
want the war to be
bullets.
over.
Here I can imagine.
They stop buying bullets.
Here, let me demonstrate this to you in the most concrete way possible. Tell me you're hungry, like just for
I'm hungry.
eat this.
That's
Do you see what?
he'll
do
take
you,
it.
Do you see what the
Yeah, I'll
fundamental
have
problem
it.
is of reducing food to money?
Right.
You can't eat the coin.
Food isn't money.
And imagine yourself being a bum.
That's a bad
Just for a
example
second.
because he can walk 10,
Hold
5
Hold
minutes
on,
down the
hold on.
street and get
Now, imagine himself being a bum who smells like
Get a donut.
horse shit, and he
Right.
takes this coin to the store, and they tell him to leave because he's stinking up the place.
They don't do that.
They do.
No, he gets his
not,
donut.
maybe not. Maybe
So
not
you
here in
just
Canada.
gave him food. Look at
No.
that. So what's your point?
My point is
He's
that maybe.
fed. He's no longer hungry.
Okay, you're juxtaposing Canada's privileges against the real situation here. If you were to do this anywhere else, where they don't give a flying fuck about these kinds of things, if you're not clean enough to enter the building, having this tiny little coin is not going to get you fed, is it?
Okay.
I've seen people denied water because they don't have a coin. Simple as that. Like somebody who's just
I don't know what
parched,
point you're trying
thirst.
to make, though.
I was sitting in the bar, and a person was parched and wanted a drink.
Right.
Water. Nothing. Cost the fucking establishments absolutely nothing. Turned him away because he wouldn't pay for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So this person is now
I've heard
walking
this
around
story.
thirsty, going from like random convenience store to like random Popeyes to like, random whatever, trying to find a drink of water in a civilization that has fucking plumbing.
Yeah. So it's a juxtaposition of the. What does this mean to the body? The actual experience of the person in this system is that my needs are not being met whatsoever.
Imagine needing to take a piss.
All that matters, this is like the horse blinders of capitalism, is if it doesn't make me money, then it doesn't exist.
Right.
There's only a certain
glass
set of things you do, and that's it.
fucking water in the middle of the summer day.
But this is
a
the
person could not get.
major problem of capitalism, of just trying to double or multiply things.
And I mean you got to understand this picture though. You can understand that this is a bar and like rules and rules, but what would have it taken to give this man a glass of water is opening up the tap,
Well,
giving
then-
it to him,
Then you have to wash it after.
and then putting it back into the dishwasher.
That's assuming he doesn't drop the glass and smash it or something.
He wasn't in the kind of he was a parched individual. He wasn't drunk.
To a
He wasn't-
business, that's
wasn't
like
anything.
right. It's so inhuman.
The same business that fucking fed alcohol to a paying customer who bled all over the glasses that they threw out. Which I watched them do.
Well,
He
they're
had a
paying
teeth.
customers.
He had a he had a teeth procedure done, and he was drinking to ease the pain.
Blah.
Unfortunately, alcohol acts as a blood thinner, right?
Correct.
One thing
So
led
he was
to
bleeding
another,
all
and
over.
then he was homeless.
Well, no, it took me to complain to them about him bleeding all over the fucking bathroom.
Homeless person?
That's
No,
fucked.
this guy was paying, but he was allowed to stay there and bleed all over their fucking establishment because he was paying for the beer. The person that wanted a glass of water, get the fuck out.
Right. Because they have nothing to offer.
They threw glasses out.
You know,
Like, they lost money on this
Right,
shit.
yeah.
it's kind of interesting that could you have asked for a glass of water at that point?
You know what? I should have.
Did
It's
you
an
think
interesting
about that?
social experience.
I didn't think of it
anyway.
at
It's
the
okay.
time.
I know. I just thought about
just
it
did-
myself
I
after
just,
all
like-
this time. This is like how many times I've heard this story.
Literally, as soon
But
as
you
you
could've-
said,
you
as soon
could've-
as you
Give him a
said,
glass of
as
water?
soon as you said that, I'm
You
like,
could
oh,
have asked for a
fuck.
glass of water.
As soon as you said that, I'm like, oh fuck.
I know.
I
I'm
could've.
sorry I did that to you, but it
man.
was a good point though. I
You
think.
Well, I
didn't
mean,
live
I
his
just
life
didn't think
now.
of
I
it at
can't
the
tell
time.
that
I was
story
already
anymore.
drunk too.
Yeah.
To be honest, I probably like I remember it, but
And
I.
you were implicit, weren't you?
Well, I watch more than I talk here a lot, but when I'm in a different context, I'm more.
Observing.
This is why I talk a lot, really, because I've seen a lot.
You've seen some shit.
I've seen some shit, man.
But we're
Damn.
all responsible for this homeless guy in our society in a way, right?
Personally, no. Collectively, we are that homeless guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Because we are in the position, all of us are
Yeah,
in the
that's how
same
you gotta
position
think
that we
about it.
are for the same reasons that he's in the position that he is in. It is the exact same system, and yeah, he fell through the cracks of it and we didn't, but that's a lottery.
So
So
But
responsibility
like,
for
how
It
did he
seems
get
about-
there, right?
I can't be responsible for where he is, but I can be responsible for what I do for him.
it seems that
Right.
social responsibility is about education, about the how what we all share in common. So that when we see somebody else, no matter what their situation or what it looks like,
Right.
could
we
see
know
the- could
we
see
know that
ourselves.
hey, I could be in that process of what imagine it. I could be doing
Yeah.
that. I could be doing that
Everybody
right now.
deserves dignity.
I could be
You can
doing
feel
that
empathetic
right
towards
now.
them.
So like the
right?
attitude of like the homeless person is there because they're lazy. That cannot fly.
It's more than that.
Right.
It's
And
way
how do
more
you
than
know?
that.
More than that.
How would
It's
you
way
ever
more
know?
than that because again,
Right.
if you go back to what I just said, it's like the same situations and conditions that were responsible for me not falling through the cracks were the same situations and positions that were responsible for him falling through the cracks.
Right.
hmm So we're wrapping up pretty much.
Yeah, we got him.
With that, we got a 5 o'clock coming up in
Oh,
a few
yeah.
minutes here. So
Oh yeah. A 5 o'clock what?
thanks so much, Dustman, for
Oh yeah.
gracing us with your presence.
Oh boy.
I think we're gonna title this this live stream session like interviews.
Yeah.
Igor and Dustin or something, because
It's cool to get different perspectives, I guess.
yeah, like we didn't talk theory this whole time. Like we didn't just try and lay down shit. We and I love it when people show up and start asking questions or talking, chatting, just like interacting with the other, right? Because we talk to each other enough that we kind of know, but
What I mean, yeah.
it really helps to
What we mean.
have a different perspective. So I appreciate that, Dustin, very much.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
And we are at 2.5 hours today.
Oh, we
but,
gotta go now. Or I'm dead.
yeah.
Testicles get
Yep.
chopped off and everything.
Oh yeah.
At a certain point.
What's interesting is that we kind of unloaded what we call the pseudo history of the world. Pseudo because we're not talking about any specific course of any specific civilization, but the trajectory of like the uncivilized
General stages.
the uncivilized tribe forming into its own city-state that is becomes a mass production of particular
Like plausible stages.
a
Like
particular
plausible, you can think through it and it kind of makes sense. that
resource
That's what would happen.
out of which an empire forms by combining all those resources, and then that gives rise to the market from within. That market divides up the empire into its own segregated nations, and then those nations become cross-national through the corporations that intertwine between them.
So you're trying to do this for the purpose of like knowing where society went wrong, so you can build your own thing. In a
To
better
give
way?
like a most generic picture of how it goes in through, not so much wrong,
And where it's
but
at.
how it
Even
goes
where it's at.
and why it goes that way.
It's not wrong because
How one
there's
begets the
always it's a striving towards higher order. So because it's worked, you can't say that this is all fucked because obviously we have this amazing civilization, right?
Right. Yeah. Well,
You just can't say it's all completely
we're
fucked.
standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say.
Exactly. So, but we're
But there
we're,
were
we're kind
also-
of saying like take this and move it further through understanding.
I think no, that's a great statement. I think what we're saying is that yes, there was those giants that we're standing on, but at the same time there were giants in the tribal civilized
Pre-civ,
the pre-civ world
the shamans.
that we can also stand on top of. And if we combine the two giants and stand on the shoulders of both, not forgetting these giants,
Okay.
that's when
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
get
yeah.
our what humanity is all
So
really about.
you're
because that
probably-
was also humanity.
You're probably saying like as civilization as a masculine kind of endeavor, whereas the pre-civ in the feminine side, the yin to the yang, combine the two.
Well, that's
like
chaos.
there's massive wisdom in the past, but there's also
Well, that's why
civilization.
energy is
That's
chaos,
why
right?
that's why women get the bad rap usually.
Female energy is chaos, right?
Well, that's a mythological statement. We all have female and male energy, so to speak.
Of course, yeah.
Right.
And then we use that mythology to like
And
sort of.
we've been pointing to chaos in the today when we've said body, basically, right? Mind and body.
Right.
Like it's just but the thing is it can be flipped because to the body order can be seen as chaos when it comes down on you and makes no fucking sense what the higher order
Right.
is telling you and you're just like I'm getting fucked,
Yeah.
Like
right?
being
That
overworked.
seems like chaos to
Yeah.
you, right? So the thing is it can flip.
Well, if the world is based off of symmetry, we would never be able to exist. Right?
The world is based off of symmetry, but the
It
thing
is, but it isn't, though. That's the thing.
the rules of the world are based off of symmetry, but the shape of the world is asymmetrical.
Right.
And that's actually a huge factor in scientific research too, because the rules, the scientific laws that we have are all derived from symmetries.
Right.
But what we observe is actually derived from observing a non-symmetrical universe trying to resymmetricize itself.
Right.
In-
Trying to get
Sure.
balanced.
The classic
Which
classic non-duality.
Which is an interesting
That's the
conundrum.
yin-yang
Which is an interesting
contrast
conundrum because
too,
that
right?
sounds like the human experience through and through, trying
Right.
to order your life in from a chaotic flow of
Right.
events.
And on an individual level, that's what we're all trying to do is just find a balance in our own lives, right?
Well, not just individual, because that's finding a balance propagates, right? Like if
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a balance, you're trying to find a balance, and we start talking,
Right.
we're going to try to find a balance in the talk.
Sure. But it's like
Mhm.
never ending that balance, right? It's on every level, though.
I think
as a process.
Yeah.
It's
Ongoing.
There's no
Sure.
layer at which it ends, but at the same time, every layer has enough symmetry between. So if you hone in on that symmetry, you don't have to have. It's like knowing enough details to survive without having to know everything that you need to know about what survival is.
Right.
Like you don't concern yourself with quantum mechanics if you're in a forest.
Sure, yeah. Whatever
Right.
applies to you, at what
So-
what
so-
level, right?
So yeah, it's like picking your battles kind of thing.
Yep. Makes sense. Any sativa roaches around?
I might have.
I just smoked one, but
I might have something.
I just gotta go get some groceries. I was gonna do a little bit of work there. There is nothing.
We never do that for you, do we? Help you work.
Oh, fuck. Intentions and reality are two different things.
See? Order and chaos right there.
correct.
Intentions, ordered. Reality,
There is
fucking
one.
chaos.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
actually
Nice.
that's actually the metaphor that we're going for. It's like what's chaos for the spider is what's order for the spider is chaos for the fly.
Right.
Because it's the fly that gets torn apart.
Right.
But it's the spider that gets all the nutrition.
That shows the power of perspective.
and it orders it.
Right. But
into its
The
body.
fly is also has things that are lower than it that it consumes.
Right.
It's just saying that
Yeah.
the context for the spider and the context for the fly are worlds apart, bro.
Oh yeah, they have different,
What's chaos to the shit is order to the fly.
right?
So that
What's-
shit just getting consumed.
No, it's
man.
what chaos to my ass.
You got flies on your ass?
Only when he
No.
doesn't shower.
Yep. So we didn't even conclude this.
That's why he got.
Before we actually leave the building, you know,
That's
we'll have
why he
to
got denied the water at the restaurant.
we'll have to end the
Oh,
session
walk is so heartbreaking to watch.
at just
I
over 2.5
I wish I
hours.
thought of the Brian's solution there earlier
My solution.
to order the water for him.
See, you're implicit in the guy's homelessness.
Right.
I didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
if he was
Knowingly.
homeless. He was just thirsty.
But how would you know to be so clever? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it don't. But anyways, so this is the end of the clip, gentlemen.
Oh,
Because I'm about to hit stop and